teaching my children. The biggest takeaway from slavery is to not get enslaved. That's the first lesson. And that's a lesson of life being savage. Number one, don't get conquered. That's how life is. Slavery is as old as sex. Mic check, testing audio. We grew from cave people, cavemen and cave women. We were Neanderthals, literally hitting each other over the head with rocks. So when you needed stuff to be farmed back in the day, this is in the world. Forget about America. Slavery is way bigger than America. There's a reason why they want you to think about it starting in 1619. Slavery is old as anything in this world. There have been slaves in Europe and literally every part of the world there's been slavery. Because people said, I need this work done on this farm way before America. I need this work done here. And I've got a bigger rock than you. I'm stronger than you. So I'm going to make you do the work. I'm not going to pay you. So allegedly, the Uyghurs in China, that's what's happening to them. You're weaker, we're going to enslave you, and you're going to do this work. Maybe we'll give you $1. Maybe we won't give you anything. Maybe you're lucky to be alive. Do this work. That's life. Life is savage. The number one lesson is don't be enslaved. That's the number one lesson. There can't be a bigger takeaway than that. Don't get conquered. I'm tired of coddling this conversation to descendants of slaves in Black America. I'm not coddling you. Grow up. Learn how life works. Nothing is entitled to you. That's the number one lesson. And ain't ish gonna change until you learn that lesson. That first lesson. Don't get conquered. It's pertinent. Hopefully I have time to get to why it's pertinent here. The number two lesson from this is you only get in life what you have the power to get. Everything set out. Oh, because of that. So I can want $1 billion. I ain't gonna get $1 billion because I don't have the power to get it. So you can want reparations all you want. You sound like fools. You don't have the power to get it. Focus on that. That would be smarter, wouldn't it? I'm not for reparations, just to be clear, but that's not even what this is about. If you want reparations, then Tariq, why aren't you focusing on the power you need to amass to get it? Because I'm not for reparations, but I'm also not for money going to Ukraine. But I'm not stopping that, am I? Because I don't have the power to. I haven't amassed the power to. And that's why I've aligned with people like Marjorie Taylor Greene, Thomas Massey, who are aligned with some things that I agree with. So hopefully I have the power to say in the next year or two, you don't get the money for these weapons. We know it's money laundering with these defense contractors and others and the big guy and all that stuff. So it doesn't matter if I'm not for money to Ukraine if I don't have the power to stop it. They're still passing the bills. So I need to focus on how do we stop it if that's a priority. If reparations are a priority for you, if you're not focusing on how to amass the power to stop it, you are an idiot, you are a fool. Because you didn't learn the first lesson. Don't get enslaved. The reason why that lesson is so important is we've been spoiled by the riches and the greatness of the country we're in right now, America. And we and black Americans and others act like slavery was regardless of race, historically. So we act like we can't be enslaved now. We can be enslaved. It won't look the same. We won't be in chains, most likely. That's not even out of the question. But you need to look at it and need to start asking. Because, you go back to the 40 acres and a mule that was promised by General Sherman under Lincoln. Lincoln got assassinated. Andrew Johnson becomes president. A Southern Democrat becomes president and says, hell no, we're not giving you some of the best land in this country, 40 acres and a mule. Are you crazy? It was a Democrat that took that promise away. Ain't shit changed. Today, Democrats promising you reparations. Where are they? They got you with Ukraine flags in your bio talking about reparations. They got you focused on forcing people to inject an experimental drug or get fired, and you're worried about reparations? You don't even have the power to stop them from controlling you. Are you enslaved right now? You didn't learn from lesson number 1. That's what Nicole Hannah-Jones won't tell you, because she's a part of enslaving you now.
At least being pushed in a stroller. Since then, she has dedicated her life to pursuing justice and opportunity for all. She is a partner to Joe, especially on issues like voting rights, and is proud to be the first but not the last. Ladies and gentlemen, the Vice President of the I just said that to make you laugh. The Vice President of the United States, Kamala Harris.
They are saying because America started with British colonizers coming here with African slaves, that everything, the Declaration of Independence, the founding of the country, the Constitution. Remember, the Constitution is sort of trash.
Some will say, okay, so are you arguing for throwing out the Constitution? Should the Constitution be thrown out? What do we do?
The Constitution is kind of trash.
Spider sense start tingling.
What did you say? It's what?
It's kind of trash.
Trash.
What did you say, nigga?
It was written by slavers and colonists and white people who were willing to make deals with slavers and colonists.
What did you say? It's what?
It's kind of trash.
Trash.
Spider sense start tingling.
They said it's a comic book for hate groups. What's your reaction to that? They said it's a comic book for hate groups. What's your reaction to that?
It's to be expected. There's a lot of things that are wrong with this industry. It's not just with the content per se. Even the economic model is very archaic.
Yeah, I dreamed of being a comic book artist since I was a little boy, and I worked my way up. It was so hard. I made it to DC Comics, made it to Superman. My little boy dream came true. They made him woke. They got rid of his American citizenship. They said the truth, justice, and the American way doesn't matter. So you guys reported on it in October. I famously walked off the book, and that was a big deal. And soon after, I met up with Eric, and we started working on ISOM together. And I also made another book with another Warner Brothers DC Comics veteran, David Williams, and we created Truth, Justice, American Way as our love letter to like your classic Avengers, Superman, Batman kind of stories. So that's going on too, and working on ISOM with Eric has been amazing.
But I also come from escaped slaves, okay? The people who weren't going to live under tyranny. I also come from a long line of civil rights activists, people who stand up when it's time to stand up, and they say, no more, I'm not going to kiss the ring, I'm not going to bend than knee. I would rather die on my feet than live on my knees. That's the spirit that we have to have right now. And I definitely have it, and I want to spread it to you.
Yes, River. Yes, yes, yes. I'm feeling that. What is good? Cyrus here, it's stuck in the middle. Let me rearrange the set a little bit. Trying to do pre-recorded stuff so I can do sound checks. I feel pretty confident that the sound, I did 3 different sound checks. I'm overdoing it now, but I want to make it right. For people taking the time to listen to some dude in their basement, I want to make sure the audio at least sounds halfway decent. My goodness. Thank you for stopping by. Garu Savage says he's listening on his way, getting ready for work. Love that. Shoot. I like getting hyped before the videos. And that's why I end with that River clip. I don't know why. That River clip, man, she should coach like a football team. Like, you want to run through a brick wall after that one, at least for me. I remember playing football. I used to love Beastie Boys Sabotage. Before going on, you got to get right for the game. So the topic's going to be Trump. I don't even know what the topic is, man. I was struggling with, what is the topic of this? And I think it is just the big topic for me right now. I talked about it before, is Trump via the deep state and the administrative state. And that's going to be the topic. And then the other takeaway is, what's the libertarian angle to this? There's a lot of takeaways from Trump. What's the biggest, I don't know, maybe just right now, what's the biggest Trump takeaway? This is being talked about a lot, and I want to dig into it more. Let me start off with a clip from who I would vote for president right now. It's not Trump, not Desantis. Believe it or not, if I were to vote for president right now, for me, it might, for some people it's not a surprise, but for others it might be. It would be Comic Dave Smith. And this is Comic Dave Smith right here. You're going to hear it. Comic Dave Smith is the young man on the left. On the right is Hotep Jesus. And you've got some powerful minds when those two get together. Let's hear what Comic Dave Smith had to say about Donald Trump in this clip here.
He could have, if he really was up to the role, if he was up to the moment in history that the gods laid before him, he could have done some cool shit. He could have pulled out of every one of these wars, and he absolutely could have done it. And people make a million excuses for him, but you know what? He could have done it. He could have just had a national televised address and said, you know what? I'm the commander in chief. The American people voted for me. We're ending every one of these wars. All of the troops are coming home from Syria, Iraq, Afghanistan. We're not supporting the Saudis anymore. That's it. This is a mess from Bush 1 to Clinton to Obama to Bush 2. All of them, we're out of this. He just didn't have the courage or the wherewithal to do that. And so he just kind of he just kind of kept the system going, but bitched about CNN on Twitter and all of that. But anyway, but to your question.
But no, we got to stop. I know. Continue. Go ahead. Continue.
Well, to your question, the thing that really bothers me about saying he incited violence is look, Donald Trump, he went out like a bitch.
Comic Dave Smith. And let me tell you, there's nothing that he said that I disagree with. It's going to sound like, when I go through what I'm talking about today, it's going to sound like I disagree with Comic Dave Smith. To some people, I know for a fact, because I went through this in Twitter, and people thought I was making excuses. You heard Comic Dave Smith say, and you might hear Anomaly say. Some people might be making excuses for Trump. I'll speak for myself, though. I don't make excuses for myself. I for damn sure I'm not going to make excuses for some random dude. I don't know Trump like that. I'm not making excuses for anybody. I don't make excuses for my wife or kids. So if it comes across as that, you have a right to your opinion, but that for sure ain't what I would be looking at. When I used to play sports, or actually I played video games, and I would record the video games, even like these shows. The last show, I listened back to every single live or every single video I upload to try and get better. The last one was brutal. My audio was, I didn't even listen to it. I should just delete it. But my point is, we can go back to Donald Trump's first term and learn from it. I don't give a damn. Yeah, he could have pardoned Assange and he could have done a lot of other stuff. We don't know what the ramifications are, though. We're not privy to what's behind the scenes. Drain the swamp sounded good. Obviously, it's much harder to do in practice. Dave Smith, all that stuff he's talking about, I would vote for him for president. It's a lot easier to say than get done. That's what this is going to be about. It's not about making any excuses. Thanks for Casual Goats, right in time for a lunch break. Much love to Casual Goats. Much love to Nathaniel Erskine. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. Pueblo County representing. I think we have somebody, fellow Coloradan here. Didn't know there was a live stream, man. I wish I was able to be consistent, but grateful that I can kind of fit it in when I got lunch break or whatever else. So thanks for joining Casual Goats. Yeah, I would like to promote it. It's not being done right. It should be consistent, promoted. That's how you know people come, but you got family, kids, work. Kyle Tompkins said, you have a great channel, bro. You and I are pretty much the same person. Much love. Appreciate it, man. Like building with everybody. Here's where I'm going to take this. It's fair criticism. I'm not saying it's not fair criticism. I'm saying the expectations are unfair. DC is a machine. And I want to use this analogy. Imagine if Elon Musk, I follow Tesla a lot. Imagine if Elon Musk, and this is a quote tweet from the Libertarian Party of Connecticut. Thank you for that tweet. Good interaction. And that tweet made me think and do something else. So that's why I like building on Twitter and having good discussion. But imagine if you know any, let me just break it down for you pretty simple here. GM is a legacy automaker. They make gas cars. They make some hybrid cars. It's very hard to make an all-electric car, which they do, to scale. You can make an electric car. That's not a problem. Can you manufacture them and make millions per year? That is a problem. That's not easy. So what I'm bringing is, if you took Elon Musk and said, hey, I'm going to make him CEO of GM. This is what Trump did. Trump came into the machine and you're the president. The machine is still there. Trump is the head at the top. There are thousands, literally 2 million, but let's focus on like the 50,000 that matter. There's 50,000 federal employees from what I'm reading here. I'm no expert on it, but from a great article I'm going to go through, 50,000 that are kind of mover and shakers. They're the ones that get the gears of the government working, just like GM. Who's on the line? Who's the one putting the bolts in the car? So you take Elon Musk, you put him in the head of GM. How long do you think it's going to take before he turns GM into Tesla? Tesla has a factory in Berlin. They have factories, I think multiple factories in China. They've got the multiple factories in the US now. And they're all designed to build only electric cars. GM doesn't have that. So you have Elon Musk, you take him and you say, boop, tomorrow, Elon Musk, you're the head of GM. He's not going to pump out Teslas like he is now in 4 years. That's not a realistic expectation. You can call that an excuse if you want, but you're just being hard-headed. It's not possible. He's the head. He will get it done. Elon, he would get it done. He would have to look who's on board, who's not on board. Get my chiefs and staff here. Fire who's not on board. We got to save money. We got to find out how do we transition from gas to electric. It would be easier for Elon Musk to start a new Tesla than it would be. He would rather start a new Tesla from scratch than take over GM and try to turn it into Tesla. Because then they got to break it down, then start it back up. So that's what happened with Trump. Trump gets into office. He can't just magically change everything. Let's be real. Another analogy. This is the best analogy of Donald Trump, because here's where I view it differently than comic Dave Smith. Donald Trump was that political figurative Molotov cocktail that the working class and everyone who is disaffected from this machine of Republicans and Democrats, were tired of them, voted for Obama and saw that it was trash and said, I want something different. I don't like where this is going. Donald Trump was that figurative Molotov cocktail. I think maybe even a bulldozer is a better analogy. So you got this big bulldozer, or let's do Star Wars. You've got the Death Star. That's DC. The Death Star in Star Wars is like the base for the bad guys, if you don't know Star Wars. So Donald Trump takes him and his band of misfits. How many people were really down with Trump to go into, they had Reince Priebus on the stage. Come on. People are like, well, why didn't he surround himself with more America first? Who? Who's qualified? Who wants to do that? You go into the Death Star, that's a political kamikaze mission. That's what it was. We have to be real about that. So he goes into the Death Star. Everybody, it's just one ship of kamikaze, a dude and a couple band of misfits. They're in the Death Star. Everybody's against them. But what's the benefit, Comic Dave Smith? The benefit is he's sending information back out to us. So now we know with the Sussman trial what they did, how they spied on him. Like, we know that for a fact. We know that it was sent down from Hillary Clinton, that she approved it. We know that for a fact. We wouldn't know that without Trump. The impeachments. We know how they tried to impeach him. We know how they tried to get him afterwards. We can make smarter moves. He was the bulldozer that just said, I'm going through. Almost like you ever go to a dance back in the day, like in middle school. I remember the dances, and at least back in the day, it would be the boys on one side, the girls on the other side, and nobody would be dancing. And it would take like one dude to step up and be like, yeah, come on. And then everybody came in and danced. So Trump was like, I'm going through. Bannon, I'm like, we're going through. We're bulldozing this thing politically, figuratively. And then we're going to send information out, paving the way for Carrie Lake. Good luck in her primary. Paving the way for Blake Masters. Paving the way for Marjorie Taylor Greene. Paving the way for Ron DeSantis. Paving the way for libertarians, too. You can see the blueprints. I'm analyzing a chess match. I'm not making excuses. Deck Gmail says, draining the swamp was one thing, but if you fill that swamp back up again, now that's another, and Trump surely did do that. Yes, but I'm going to talk about that. Let me tell you the challenges. He did, but let me tell you the challenges and the two issues I had with Trump. He has addressed them. My number one issue was the pandemic, poor response. And this was actually addressed during his administration that I didn't know. I wasn't aware. I was ignorant. And then Jared Kushner and his daughter get out. And the rumors are, he hasn't said it himself, but it's been reported through anonymous sources that they're not going to be politically involved. Let's go through this. Trump helped shine a light on these people. Look at this progression. In May of 2018, the headline, look at this headline. May of 2018, there is no deep state. Former intelligence directors slam Trump's conspiracy theory. This is from General Michael Hayden, CIA, military, deep state. He is part of the deep state might be deeper than him, but he's part of the administrative state at the very least. And I'll talk about that difference in a minute. So in 2018, they said there is no deep state. Former intelligence directors slam Trump's conspiracy theories. They were forced to address them because Trump's talking about them, and people like me are like, wait, what's going on? We're learning how this stuff works through him being in the Death Star and talking about it. Then in 2019, they're like, well, there is no deep state, but maybe there should be. Wait, what? That was a kind of slight little turn. So a year ago, there was no deep state from the deep state. Then in 2019, there's no deep state, but maybe we should have one. Why? To protect ourselves from Trump. 2022, Daily Beast. You're going to miss the deep state when it's gone. This is the progression. This is not a meme. This is real life. These are real articles. These are not fake articles. I'm not really big on people sharing these fake pictures of articles. These are real articles. Just July 26th, you're going to miss. So it went from there is no deep state to there is no deep state, but there should be, to you're going to miss the deep state when it's gone. That wouldn't have happened without Trump, period. So he's in there giving us information. Is he perfect? Nah. But you have to have the right tool for the job. Maybe Comic Dave Smith is the right tool for the job now that Trump went in and bulldozed or kind of is playing around in the Death Star that we can see. Maybe somebody else, Desantis or Dave Smith, are the right person, but give Trump credit for what he is. He beat Hillary. Comic Dave Smith, respectfully, could you have beaten Hillary in 2016? No. Could DeSantis have beaten Hillary in 2016? No. So we just have to understand Trump was the tool to the battering ram to get into DC. This is going to take generations. It's going to take 20 years plus. What is the deep administrative state? Let's talk about that in a little bit more detail. Marjorie Taylor Greene, January of this year, was on with Timcast, episode 440. She talked about it. It's all over. It's judicial. It's legislative. They're the ones that make the legislation. It comes from bottom on up is what I'm researching and seeing. But here's the congressional level. What is the administrative state?
What was your other one?
Mandatory term limits.
Okay, so you know who the problem is?
Who?
The staff.
The
staff never leaves.
Yep.
Guess what? So I'm going to go into this a little bit. When I became a member of Congress, I was given, so here's how it works, you guys. Every member of Congress is allotted a certain amount of money per year. So for my district, my allotment is $1.4 million. With $1.4 million, I have to hire my staff. I have to pay for district offices. It's like a mini business. Each member of Congress is like a mini business, and you have to stay within those bounds. If I spend more than that, guess what? I have to pay for it out of my campaign funds. So that's a big no-no, right? So $1.4 million. But here's the deal. So when I went to Washington and I had to hire staff, I'm like, who do I hire? Well, guess what? There's a whole bunch of people President Trump just left office. There's a bunch of people looking for jobs. The staff in Washington never leaves.
We talk about the administrative state being like the head of the FBI, J. Edgar Hoover, 40 years at the head of the FBI, administrative state all the way, deep state, whatever. And so you're saying that the actual staff, congressional staff, is also part of that administrative state. Like they're just.
Oh my gosh, yeah. And they'll go from working in a Democrat office to working in a Republican office. It's a job.
So let me clarify.
It's a job.
Term limits for everyone, including the bureaucracy.
Well, so here's some other things. So let's say I think I signed the term limits pledge, by the way. But I don't want to term limit myself unless everyone else is term limited, because guess what that is?
Oh, yeah.
That would be like leaving and then leaving all the bad people in there. So that doesn't make sense. But so here's something, 10,000 hour rule. Has anyone ever heard of that? 10,000 hours?
It's like good at something.
If you do something 10,000 hours,
yeah,
you become
you're an expert.
master
Oh
at
my
it.
gosh, you're an expert. So if I played that guitar behind you for 10,000 hours, should be pretty good at it.
Yeah.
I would hope so. But anyways, so if you're there for only 6 years, or for, I think, senators 12 years, by the time you become an expert, you leave. And so I don't really know that all the problems can be solved. I know this, I want the good people to stay in and fight and fix the problems. So the term limit issue is really interesting. If you only term limit the members of Congress and the senators, but you never term limit the staff and the changes there, then essentially you're not solving any problems.
Yeah, that's why I say term limit all of them. I think it's rotten to the core, and I think the more we have new people in there, the less government does. And that, to me, any kind of expert in government, I don't like, because they're doing more government stuff. But that's my own personal opinion, and we could agree to disagree with there. And
like
I think
regime change.
Yeah, and neocon wars that, of course, don't produce anything and destroy American soldiers' lives, destroy our economy, and absolutely just fill the bankrolls for multinational corporations like Halliburton that are able to make too much money. Lockheed Martin, all of them are just absolutely controlling a lot of our policy that also just quite benefits them at the same time. It's crazy what's happening in Washington, D.C. I say fire all of them myself, but that's just my personal perspective and opinion.
So think of this from a business standpoint. When Marjorie Taylor Greene is going in and saying, I have an agenda, an America First agenda. And I go into DC and I'm like, I need to staff. Who am I going to staff? Who knows the inner working of DC? I don't know the inner working of DC. And even if I did, are you crazy? I'm not going to go into that hornet's nest. You see what they're doing? They're pulling Peter Navarro out in shackles, running up on Roger Stone, Steve Bannon, all these trials, and they're all biased and unfair. They're attacking anybody, J6ers. Even if you just went to the speech, they call you basically a traitor, much less working for Marjorie Taylor Greene and trying to do America First policy. They'll dig up whatever dirt they can on you, and everybody has some dirt that can be dug up. I don't want to go in there. So she goes in and like, who am I going to hire? She has to hire people who used to work for Obama, who used to work for Bush. Imagine taking over a Walmart. You're running a Walmart. You're the direct, I don't even know what the position is. Like you own a Walmart. Let's just hypothetically, it's like a franchise. Pretend you own a Walmart. You gotta staff it with employees. You take it over and you look at it, and all these employees are they're not with you, they're against you. That's a hard thing to do. How are you going to replace it? Who are you going to find to work for you? So that's the context of where all this happens. So now you're looking at it from a libertarian standpoint, is you've got to build up your bench, or even a MAGA standpoint. You've got to build up the pool of people you can choose from who aren't in DC or are in DC and are MAGA or America First friendly or whatever your agenda is, libertarian friendly. I think of the deep state as more of the national security, CIA, and things that we don't even know is what I do. And then the administrative state is what Marjorie Taylor Greene is talking about, these congressional staffers. They're staffers from all this. How did the SCOTUS leak happen? It was one of these clerks. There's all these people planted everywhere that have information, that know things, and they might be against you. Imagine working and the person reporting to you is vehemently against you. So they are the ones that keep the government moving. Ballotpedia has this article. I'm not going to go through it too much. I just want to highlight and show you how crazy good this article is from Ballotpedia. It's excellent. It's all about the administrative state. So you can put Trump in office or DeSantis or anybody else, but these are the people who are running things in the CDC, in the Health and Human Services and Department of Homeland Security, in the transportation, agriculture. Like you can appoint people, but underneath them are thousands of workers. The administrative state is a term used to describe the phenomenon of the executive branch. So the executive branch, administrative agencies exercising the power to create, adjudicate, and enforce their own rules. These people, so I've always looked at it like a corporate thing, like Trump, they report to you, so you tell them what to do. Yeah, in theory, but one, you can't fire people every second. Two, remember Trump had all these, acting AG, acting this. You got to get them approved through Congress. So who's America First that's willing, able, qualified, can get approved by Congress? And that's not even, the administrative state is underneath them, but you can't even get the appointees. It's hard to even get if you can't get the appointees right, they're the ones who are supposed to be looking down and saying, let's get rid of this person. They're trying to leak stuff on us and all that. When Obama took over, this is the challenge. When Obama took over, nothing leaked. Nothing leaked that he didn't want to leak. And if you leaked something that Obama didn't want to leak under Obama, almost literally nothing leaked. It was unbelievable. Why? Because his agenda was in lockstep with the administrative state and the deep state. What are they going to leak? Now, I know he had beef with the Clintons and all that, but when it comes down to it, they were all in lockstep. There's nothing going to be leaked. Trump gets into office, and there's not a day that goes by that there's not a leak. Like every single day. New York Times and Washington Post, and to this person, to that person. You're seeing some leaks a little bit with Biden. Postlebeck is getting some stuff. There are people that, that's what it seems like, who are America First in there, but it's not a lot. That's what you're dealing with. So Trump's going in there in an unfriendly environment with thousands of employees. So they're all over the place. They enforce their own rules. They're supposed to report to the executive branch. But if you hire a bunch of people that hate you and they don't want to work with you, they don't like you, then you can't control them. You can't fire everybody. And some of the people that he did hire got attacked by the media and everything. So they went through all this. I'm not going to go through it, but look at all this. It's a detailed how it started and all about the administrative state. Excellent work there by Ballotpedia. And I'm just finding out about this stuff now. There's a lot of people who already knew about all this, probably you in the chat, maybe some people did, but that's the benefit of Trump. He woke me up. Regardless if I agree with everything, if he was perfect or not, if he didn't do this or did that, Trump is going to go down as one of the most important presidents. There's obviously no president better than Trump that's ever been in office in my lifetime. Who are you going to pick, Clinton, Obama? Like, there's not even a close thing. It's not even close. How did the administrative state start? One of the most disastrous presidents in the history of our country, Woodrow Wilson. Well, I don't know if he started it, but he expanded it. And I'm looking back at this idea of a living constitution. All that is a fancy word for let's take away your rights. And he is one of the first people I've seen in that concept of, the Constitution says this, but it really means that. No, can you read? No, it means what it says. Common people to this day, the Federal Reserve Act created central banking. He expanded the administrative state. This dude. Let me read a little bit. Ballotpedia has a good piece here. Woodrow Wilson, who assumed the presidency in 1913, embraced policies that contributed to the expansion of the budding administrative state. Wilson, Frank Goodenough, and other contemporary thought leaders envisioned a government structure where politics and administration could operate separately from one another. Under this structure, government administration could be managed by supposedly neutral experts that includes Fauci, Walensky, Birx. They are the neutral experts. How'd that turn out, Woodrow? Turn over in your grave for me a little bit. That's how disastrous this is. Under this structure, government administration could be managed by neutral experts operating without political influence who could consequently improve the lives of all Americans. The Americans voted for a president, and this goes for good or bad. It applies for Joe Biden too. But he's already got his people in there. He doesn't need to do much. He's a part of the machine. But if it's progressive, maybe like a Jimmy Dore would have to do the same cleaning of house. We all can look at what Trump did and learn from it. So they thought that this would improve the lives of all Americans. No, the country voted for a president, and you in the executive branch report to the president. That's how you improve the lives of the people, by doing what the people don't know all these administrative people. That's why we voted Donald Trump in or Obama in or whoever. It doesn't matter who or Clinton or Bush. They got voted in, so they would decide what these people did, not them on their individual basis. What kind of sense does that make? None of these people that we're talking about in the administrative state are voted for, and they're under the appointees. So they're not appointed. They don't go through congressional hearings. So that's why they did that. That was the thought process. Maybe it was genuine, but we know now it was terrible. DeFreak said Snowden knew. Yep. That's why I appreciate Snowden, Assange. They helped wake people up. So when you look through it, that's Woodrow Wilson. I want to talk about Democrats. Woodrow Wilson was a Democrat. The Democrat Party took over in 1913, and the legislation spanned beyond 1913, but they proceeded to annihilate the Constitution. If you want to go back to where inflation, all these concerns, you could go to Nixon and the gold standard, but I would go back to the creation of the Federal Reserve and this expansion of this monster. They turned our federal government into an uncontrollable monster that destroys anything or anyone who dares question its power. That includes you and me. The only reason that we're not destroyed is because we don't have influence. Bryson Gray does. That's why he's on the J6 hit list. Nick Rekieta does. That's why he gets strikes. He just came back from a strike on his channel. That's why he gets smeared in the Washington Post. When you're in this lane, that I don't consider myself anti-establishment. I just want to say I disagree with the establishment. I know that silly Michael Malice actually quote tweeted me about a year ago where he kind of clowned that idea. Like, what, you're not against the establishment, you're just trying to hold them in check? Like, come on, bro. Fair. But I do not consider myself anti-establishment. But if you aren't afraid to bring up those anti-establishment views and you have influence, you better watch out. Shackles, unlived, all that, all on the table. That doesn't even count the media. So when we talk about Trump struggling with the pandemic, I have a rant on this channel against Trump and the pandemic, frustrated with him and Fauci and how he handled it and how he embraced big pharma and really started all of this. Fair criticism. But that is the take of someone who is playing checkers, not chess. It's the take of a simpleton. It's true, but let's dig deeper. What he really struggled with was an all-out attack from when he first got into office to it ramped up in the election year. Not an accident. He struggled with an all-out attack against him by the deep administrative state. All these, how many of the 50,000 employees at the federal level that have all this input in legislation, judicial parts, and science and health, how many of them do you think were America First? Just guess. You could probably count them on one hand. And the ones who were America First, how many were out as America First, like openly trying to fight for it? You probably count them in one hand out of 50,000 employees. That's the problem. This is the former response pandemic director, Deborah Birx, in my opinion, admitting that she lied to the president and the country.
Here's Deborah Birx. She's the former White House COVID response director, again on Fox News.
I knew these vaccines were not going to protect against infection, and I think we overplayed the vaccines, and it made people then worry that it's not going to protect against severe disease and hospitalization. It will, but let's be very clear.
What did you say, Mai?
Here's Deborah Birx. She's the former White House COVID response director, again on Fox News.
I knew these vaccines were not going to protect against infection.
What did you say?
Again on Fox News.
I knew these vaccines were not going to protect against infection, and I think we overplayed the vaccines, and it made people then worry that it's not going to protect against severe disease and hospitalization. It will, but let's be very clear.
I don't know. Let me hear that one more time. What did she say?
On Fox News.
I knew these vaccines were not going to protect against infection, and I think we overplayed the vaccines, and it made people then worry that it's not going to protect against severe disease and hospitalization. It will, but let's be very clear. 50% of the people who died from the Omicron surge were older, vaccinated.
What? Stop the quote. I knew these vaccines were not going to protect against infection. Really, Deborah Birx? But somehow you forgot to mention that as people were being fired from their jobs for not taking this on the premise that if they took it, they would never be infected? When do you get criminally charged? Soon, we hope. Here's Deborah.
That is just an example of one of the 50,000 employees that whoever becomes president, you're going to have to deal with. In my opinion, they would literally lie and cause unliving of Americans and people anywhere to protect their power. That's what we're up against. That's not an excuse. That just has to be acknowledged as just what it is. These deep state, administrative state workers, they don't need to get like direct marching orders. They know what the cabal wanted. We know what they want, and you're not in the deep state. They didn't care about accurate information, in my opinion. You heard her say it right there. When did she come to that realization? Why are we now just hearing that for the first time? They wanted to save democracy. That all that stuff, the pandemic came in 2020. So I want to do the disclaimer since I'm talking about the pandemic to make sure if YouTube pulls a video that it's clear. I'm not telling anybody to do anything or not. I'm not making any medical suggestions. I'm talking about the government response. I think, are we still allowed to criticize that? I'm talking about the government response. Am I allowed to have my own opinion on my own body? Are we allowed to do that? I'm not telling anybody to do anything. And I do not tell people to do what doctors say. I say, listen to the doctors. Ultimately, it's your decision. So that's where Trump messed up. He listened to these experts. I don't have to do what the experts tell me to do. That's why I was hyped when Desantis said, no. I'm looking at other experts, and those other experts, they're not telling me what to do. I'm making the decision. So it kind of irks me sometimes where you hear people say, well, listen to your doctor. And they kind of, I don't know if they say that, but some people, it kind of feels like they say, do whatever your doctor tells you to do. My doctor is not my daddy. I'll do whatever the hell I want to do. But I do think you should listen to all information. So they wanted to fortify this cabal, wanted to fortify the election, in my opinion, by lying, making Trump look like a buffoon. And is he the smartest person in the world? No, but they obviously helped to make him look real stupid, because they could have actually helped, like when he misspoke about bleach and stuff. They could have cleared that up instead of making him look more stupid. Administrative state media and undermining him. Remember this article, The Secret History of the Shadow Campaign That Saved the 2020 Election? That's why the participants want the secret history. This is in Time magazine. That's why the participants want the secret history of the 2020 election told. They want credit for it. Like they're Superman, like they're some Justice League. Even though it sounds like a paranoid fever dream, a well-funded cabal. I didn't write this. Let me make sure this is bigger. That's why the participants want the secret history of the 2020 election told, even though it sounds like a paranoid fever dream, a well-funded cabal of powerful people ranging across industries and ideologies. So it's not just the administrative state. Like all the corporations went Black Lives Matter at that time. We know now it's a completely corrupt. It was always corrupt. They knew, in my opinion, it was corrupt from the start. It was all designed for this, to get Trump out of office. So he's up against all of that. They changed rules. Those rules still haven't been changed, y'all. The Pennsylvania laws that have been deemed unconstitutional, that they changed the law for mail-in ballot when they're not set up for mail-in ballots, and mail-in ballots are actually, with certain exceptions, on a mass level, certainly go against their constitution. It's still legal. They're still going to do that for the midterms. We'll see if they change it for, I don't know what's taking so long. See if they'll change it by the general election. But they changed rules. These are facts. They changed rules and laws, steered media coverage, and controlled the flow of information. They weren't R-wording the election. They were fortifying it. Don't worry. This isn't a stick-up. I'm fortifying your wallet just to make sure that I got everything in it. Then I'm going to give it back to you. I'm saving democracy. This isn't a stick-up. They're just fortifying it. That's all. That's all they were doing, was fortifying it. Doesn't that make you feel better? It was nothing unsavory about it. If you have questions, don't worry. Don't ask questions. Don't. like Black Lives Matter and all that. Why are you looking back to Black Lives Matter and the mansions and the set it off, Patrisse Cullors and them? Why are you looking at that? Why are you looking at the Whitmer lies? The FBI basically entrapped these dodo birds into this scheme that the FBI basically created. They were just fortifying things. Don't worry about it. It's all good. And they believe the public needs to understand the system's fragility in order to ensure that democracy in America endures. So why do I bring that up? Because the staffers in DC, these administrative staffers, they all know that too. Nobody has to give them an order. All I have to do is read the newspaper. And they're in DC. They know, they talk. That's the goal in order to save democracy. And that's how they justify violating your rights and lying to you and even causing people to be unlived. It's okay. We're saving your democracy and fortifying things for you. It's for the better of the country. Trickles all the way down to these people that actually make the government work. The president doesn't make the government work. If you buy Walmart, you're not stocking the shelves by yourself. You hire people to do that. He was undermined in all aspects of governing, including the military. So it was amazing that he was even able to, with an impeachment and all that, to negotiate the withdrawal from Afghanistan. So I know Comic Dave Smith and Libertarians wanted him to do more, but damn, let's be grateful for what happened. Per the book Peril, General Mark Milley, the one who studies white rage, he might find out what Asian rage is pretty soon. In secret conversations told General Li Zhouqing from the People's Liberation Army, that's the China's army, that he would give them a heads up before attacking. And people who went to a rally on J6 are traitors? Well, if they're traitors, what is this? This is behind the back of the commander-in-chief, the president. He didn't know. That's at the high level. What do you think the lower level guys are doing that the president can't even see what they're doing? These are the guys who lead the lower levels. He told our enemy that before anything pops off, like General Milley, would that cost any lives of any of our servicemen and women by giving the Chinese army a heads up before we attack? If the commander-in-chief is Donald Trump and he tells you to attack, you attack. I'm non-interventionist. I don't want war. America first, MAGA, they don't want war. I'm just giving you a hypothetical. Could that have cost any lives? General Milley? That's what Trump's up again. These are the receipts from the book. Trump's response to all of this is the white pill. Trump's response is an executive order that has been worked on in secrecy for most of his term as POTUS. So they were working on this. They saw this before. He signed it in October of 2020, but according to Jonathan Swan, they had been working on it for up to 2 years before that. First term's only 4 years. He's never been a public servant, ever. Even as a CEO, he's just a figurehead. Donald Trump is more of a promoter and a mascot than he is, to me, even a CEO. That's why he licensed his name for hotels to use his name. He's not running them. I'm a brander. I've got this Trump brand. You want to buy it? And he used it to be that bulldozer to get into the Death Star. So working on that 2 years in is impressive, if that's true. But he signed it, so I believe it's true. And I'm going to show you a link to Democrats trying to combat it to show you that it looks to be very true and they're very worried about it. So Trump signed it October 2020. I'm going to tell you what that is in a second, the Schedule F. If you haven't heard, this is big news. This is how, because I said, okay, this pandemic stuff happened. You hired the wrong people. What did you learn, bruh? Trump isn't the type of guy who's going to say, I'm sorry, I made a mistake and all that. For whatever reason, that's what it is. It's a flaw, but it's also the strength that probably got him in there. When they talked about Rosie O'Donnell, did he apologize? No. Would I have apologized? Probably. Would I have even said that? I don't know. Would I have beaten Hillary? No. Biden rescinded it in January of 2021, like I think literally right after he was sworn in. Here's Jonathan Swan talking about the Schedule F.
At the heart of all of this is a legal instrument. It's an executive order called that they call Schedule F. And if your viewers haven't heard of Schedule F or hadn't heard of it before the stories, that's for good reason, because it was developed in strict secrecy for most of the Trump administration, at least for the last 2 years of it. And it was only finally issued, Trump only signed it into law 13 days before the presidential election in 2020. And, you know, when you put out some anodyne sounding order called Schedule F amid the craziest election in American history, you know, you could be forgiven for not paying attention to it. But it's actually profound what it does. At the heart of all of this.
So that's just the intro to what it is. The Schedule F would remove employment protections from these administrative state employees. So give me an example. I've been researching, like, what are the protections? What I've seen is some of these protections are, if you want to fire someone in the FBI, some of these people who are under the Director Wray, if you want to fire them, they can appeal. So you fire them, and then they get so much time between each appeal. It seems, I don't know if it's the same for each one or what, but I've seen stuff that says like they get 3 years after an appeal or something like that. It's crazy. I don't have the exact stuff. I was reading it and I didn't get a chance to clip it. So let me just be more vague because I don't have the receipt. I like to have the receipts for that. But just understand the process to fire these people under these appointees. Trump can fire anytime. But the problem is then now you have to hire a new one. Who hires the new appointee? Who does the vetting for you? The administrative state. That's why Trump had his family near him. I understand that. And how many people in the whole in the whole DC machine could Trump have trusted? Literally, you're talking about like 5 people against thousands. So you hire Bolton. Obviously a mistake. You fire Bolton. Who do you hire? You go to Matt Christensen. Who do you go to after that? I mean, and they're acting because no one's going to approve them. The Congress is all corporate. They're not approving some, random American first guy that's not beholden to their issues. So all these administrative employees have these huge protections where you can't just fire them. It's not that easy. I didn't know that until now. Again, Trump waking me up at least, making them far easier to fire. This is Trump's attempt to undo the harm that I talked about earlier from Woodrow Wilson and others. The goal here, in my opinion, isn't to fire everyone. You just can't. There's too many people to hire, and I don't think there's a big enough pool in the country to replace them with people you can trust. So you just would be firing deep state administrative corporate people and replacing them with more corporate people. The goal is, if I can fire you, now you have a motivation. There's a quid pro quo with how DC works. I'm not, if I'm a lifer administrative staffer and then Marjorie Taylor Greene comes in and I'm going to work for her. I might be the person that says, hey, I'm working for Marjorie Taylor Greene, but I'm going to whisper to the other people, I think she's bad for our country. And I'm going to work to undermine her, to save democracy, to fortify the midterms, to fortify the general election. I'm going to undermine her every step of the way, but I'm going to smile in her face and pretend that we're best friends. That's what you're up against. So Trump is trying to do something where it's like, I want to motivate you. And I'm unclear if it would apply because Congress is the legislative branch. So I don't think, who knows? I don't know. I don't know if the president has that power for the legislative branch, but I wonder if he's trying to put some checks there separate from the executive branch. I don't know. It's an executive order. So to me, this is solid. I haven't read it. I got to find it and read it. But to me, this is solid for any employee that reports through the executive branch. I don't know about the legislative branch. That doesn't make sense. You can't cross branches like that. But if you keep it to the executive branch, the Supreme Court is going to uphold that. No brainer. Now, there's pros and cons because you bring people in who aren't experienced maybe or don't know how to do the job, and the gear of the government might not run as smoothly. But remember, Trump is that Molotov cocktail. We don't really want it. We want it to run right. So if it's not running right, then we're going to have to break it down until it runs the way we want it to run. So Trump is saying, I need to give you guys all these deep state people motivation to listen to me because you'll get fired. A lot of these people they're not even all ideologues. They're like, they're indifferent. They're apathetic to the Republican or Democrat. They're just out for Delph. So you have to give them motivation to be out for more than themselves. Continuing this clip from Jonathan Swan, he talks about it in more detail.
It allows cabinet agencies to reclassify tens of thousands of career civil servants who have currently under law and have for decades very strong employment protections, because the idea is that these career civil servants, nonpartisan, continue from one administration to the next, regardless of the party of the president in power. Trump wants to fire tens of thousands, potentially, at least thousands of these people that he calls pejoratively the deep state. And what this order allows him to...
And I don't agree with that. Who knows? This is all leaked by anonymous sources. And I think the leak was approved by Trump. It's not an accident. Trump isn't, to my knowledge, he was supposed to say this at the TPUSA speech, talk about this Schedule F stuff. I never heard the speech, so I don't know if he talked about that or not. But he leaked this on purpose. And the goal, Jonathan Swan is trying to make it sound ominous, which Trump could do that. But would you want to go in to Walmart and fire everyone? Or would you want to go in and find out who's okay, who can I work with, and just fire who you need to? Because if you went in there and fired everyone, then you've got to retrain everyone who comes in. Some people might have varying levels of experience, but it's not to fire everyone like Jonathan Swan is saying. It's to have leverage over everyone.
Trump wants to fire tens of thousands, potentially, at least thousands of these people that he calls pejoratively the deep state. And what this order allows him to do is to reclassify them as a new employment category called Schedule F. They immediately lose almost all of their employment protection.
That's Schedule F. F as in you're fired.
And can be easily fired and replaced. So that's happening there. As you can imagine, there'll be legal challenges to this. But I'll tell you, Trump's advisors like their chances in a court system now dominated by conservatives at the highest level.
This ain't got nothing to do with conservative or not. That's not. It's a Supreme Court that does not believe the majority of the justices on the Supreme Court do not believe in a living constitution. If you want to call that a conservative value, you can. I don't view it as that. It's more of that originalist. I don't even like that term. The document is what it is. If you don't believe the document is what it is, then you're something else. I'm not. I'm just me. So this has nothing to do with conservative or pro-Trump or anti-Trump. You think all the justices on the Supreme Court like Trump? No.
Now dominated by conservatives at the highest level. And because of that, there are some Democrats who've been following this issue very carefully and who are quite alarmed about it and have been trying to take steps to preemptively prevent a future president from doing this. So Gerald Connolly.
You want to know why they're alarmed? Because they have a pool of people that work and they don't have to do anything. They know their allegiance for these staffers are to the cabal. And the president's elite, these politicians also are to the cabal. So you might have little squabbles, but they know we are on the same page, basically. We know we're supposed to be anti-populist. We know we're supposed to be pro-climate agenda. Oh, all that Ukraine, whatever the thing is. But if Trump can do this, you create a market Right now, the only market for DC are people who feed into the cabal. I can use the term cabal. The Time article did. So that's the market. That they're all from the universities. They all feed into the cabal. If Trump does this, and you're in a university and you're not with the cabal, now you're like, well, there might be a place for me in DC now. So these cabal politicians, Manchin, all these, all the typical ones, AOC as a cabalist, there's going to be a pool of administrative state people over this is going to take years, 20 years. The people who are going to be the future America First administrative state, they're not even born yet. But someone like AOC, and she could still be in office at this time. She's only 30 something, she's not even 35, I don't think. They're worried that, oh no, there could be staffers that are America First and anti my movement. So that's the tables would have been turned. It's not going to happen tomorrow, but that's the fear. That's what they're scared about.
Been trying to take steps to preemptively prevent a future president from doing this. So Jerry Connolly, a representative from Virginia who heads the subcommittee who oversees the federal civil service, he's attached an amendment to the annual defense bill to try and prevent this from happening. Republicans want to block it in the Senate.
What the hell does that have to do with the defense bill? So anything that they don't like falls under national defense. Anything. I used to think that the number one, when I say used to, I mean like a couple days ago, I used to think that the number one issue, if there's a MAGA influence, there won't be all MAGA, but if Republicans take over, MAGA has influence, the number one issue is digital protection, digital rights. That's the number one thing. But how does that happen with this administrative state? It's impossible. It's not going to happen. Not under this administrative state. So the number one goal is to get this clean house. So it can happen. The administrative state is the reason why it hasn't happened. This machine that keeps turning and turning. We got to grind these gears to a stop and then change directions. It's going to take years. But this is the number one topic for me now, not even the digital rights, because that's not going to happen. How does that happen? It can't happen as things stand now. So that's what they're really worried about.
Service. He's attached an amendment to the annual defense bill.
There was something here I wanted to address also. Let me think.
Heads the subcommittee who oversees the federal civil service. He's attached an amendment to the annual defense bill to try and prevent this from happening, to preemptively prevent a future president from doing this. So Gerald Connolly.
Okay, I want to remind myself, I lost the thought. Desantis. They're more concerned, I think, about Desantis. That's what Desantis did in Florida. He hired people as far as the pandemic. He went to Jay Bhattacharya. So imagine if DeSantis became president and used the same Schedule F that Trump did. DeSantis would probably be a lot more qualified to be able to root people out and clean house. He's probably just better at it. He did it in Florida against the pandemic when no one else was doing it in the world. Not like he did. So imagine if he had that power. Trump's just paving the way. Imagine if Comic Dave Smith became president. Would you want Comic Dave Smith to have the power to fire? How many Mises Caucus libertarians do you think are in DC right now? Is Rand Paul even one? I mean, Rand is probably the only, there's probably more that are open to it. But do you think that Dave Smith, when he started the rant and talked about Iraq, and I think he talked about Syria and Yemen, do you think Dave Smith would be able to take office in 2025, January of 2025, and change this gear, this machine? He's in the Death Star. Who are you going to be rolling with? Now, that's why I like Comic Dave Smith, Robbie Fire Bernstein, all them, Michael Heiss, Angela McArdle. They did this on a level where they took over the Libertarian Party. But taking over DC, obviously, is a whole different animal. Would you want Comic Dave Smith to have this power or not? How do you decentralize the government? Now, one of the ways is the Convention of States, which is a discussion of power between states and the federal government. If you want to decentralize the federal government, you obviously want more power with the states. Then power gets with the states, then you decentralize from there. It's a stage. It's not going to go from the federal government being this humongous monster. Like, think of the federal government right now as Jupiter. We're like Pluto. We got to take Jupiter down, shrink it down. It will happen stage by stage by stage. It's not going to be, oh, hypothetically, Comic Dave Smith is president. Oh, we're going to be decentralized by the end of the year. Not going to happen. Definitely won't happen if you can't clean house. And then not only cleaning house, I'm going to get to that in a second, you've got to restock the house. That's not easy either. So out of a workforce of over 2 million, Schedule F would apply to about 50,000 federal workers. Typical turnover is about 4,000 workers. And I'm unclear. I would assume that's all executive branch workers, but I have to look that up. So typical turnover is about 4,000 workers, which is a daunting task by itself. Now it would apply to about 50,000. You're not turning over all 50,000. It's not practical to fire all of them. Trump would just need the ability to have his people remove the bad apples. So he's going to have people around him like Kash Patel, Peter Navarro, and others to help him staff this. I talked about, here's an example of how I think the Schedule F could give POTUS leverage. Trump wanted to appoint Kash Patel to deputy director of the FBI or CIA. So he wanted to appoint his guy, a guy that I know is in line with me, that I can trust in the FBI and CIA. So Trump had already tried to address this stuff. Attorney General Bill Barr, anti-friend of show, wrote in his memoir that it would happen over my dead body. And here's the receipt from the Jonathan Swan article. It's a great article. One astonishing but ill-fated plan, Trump wanted to install Patel as either deputy director of the CIA or FBI late in his administration. He abandoned this only after vehement opposition and warnings from senior officials, including Haspel and former Attorney General Bill Barr, who wrote in his own memoir, because he wanted credit for it, that's why he's writing it, that he told then Chief of Staff Mark Meadows that Patel becoming deputy FBI director would happen over my dead body. And Bill Barr is going to lie to our face and say, if Trump was the candidate, I would vote for Trump. Are you crazy? If it was Trump versus Newsom, if you could look at Bill Barr voting in the voting booth, I would bet everything I own he would vote for Gavin Newsom. Everything. So that's what happened. So you might wonder, well, why didn't Trump just not do what he said? So what? Bill Barr, Trump doesn't report to Bill Barr. Bill Barr, in a way, reports to Trump. Why didn't he just ignore Barr and appoint Kash? Part of the leverage Bill Barr has is shared ideology with the FBI administrative state employees who can make Trump's life a living hell. They can ignore a laptop from Robert if they want to. They can hint that a laptop from Robert, even if they know it's not, they can hint that it's Russian disinformation. And then they can get dirt on you or whatever. Who knows what they could do? So Trump's weighing the pros and cons. What are the pros and cons of me putting Kash in there? And if I put Kash in there, they're all going to be out for him, knives out politically. Is he going to get burned out or scared away or whatever the case is? Is it really worth it? This is political warfare. This isn't like some video game where, I'm going to put in Michael Jordan and then my small forward is going to be Scottie Pippen and then I'm going to have Tim Duncan and then I'm going to have Shaquille O'Neal. Like, that's not how it works. There's somebody fighting against you to put, you're going to put somebody in here so Kash can get some sensitive information, dig up dirt on other people? Are you crazy? We're going to put the whole force. Obviously, Bill Barr's not going to put that in his book. He's like, we're going to put the full force of every security intelligence person against you and your family and just make your life a living hell. we have to acknowledge that. I'm not making excuses for Trump, but damn, like there are reasons why these things are difficult. Let's just say that. This Bill Barr's book, I've not read it. I will. If you are a libertarian and want to decentralize government control, it can't happen with the way things are constructed now. It's not about whether you like Trump or not. This is the type of executive power that will be needed for change. Trump is putting his life on the line, in my opinion. I am not. You saw what happened to Shinzo Abe. I don't know what the motives are behind it. I've not seen that yet. But he was a very Trump-like figure, nationalist, anti-establishment. He's no longer with us. So those two things are true. Are they connected? I don't know. Sources close to the former president said that he will, as a matter of top priority, go after the national security apparatus, clean house in the intelligence community and the State Department, target the woke generals at the Defense Department, and remove the top layers of the Justice Department and FBI. Do you think they're going to let that happen easy? J6 committee, why do you think they're trying to do DOJ charges against him? They're not going to go quietly into the night. So instead of worrying about like all this little nitty gritty stuff about what Trump didn't do, let's learn to listen. I'm not saying don't criticize him. That's fine. But what's the lesson that we're learning from him? So somebody asked me, all he had to do was not hire Fauci, Bolton. The Libertarian Party of Connecticut replied again. Fair questions. All he had to do was not hire Fauci, Bolton, Pompeo, etc. He did, though. Why should we trust him to do right this time? I'm not even getting into the trust. I trust no one. I don't know. I don't trust him to do what's right. I'm just talking about what's being reported here. And this is a good thing. That's where I'm coming from. So I was like, fair question. Only Trump can answer that. But I think part of the problem is personnel. The MAGA movement came on strong, fast. How many America First people are there in the U.S. qualified and willing to get attacked like Trump and enter the swamp? You're making, what, $150,000 a year? And you can do a book deal, so you maybe make a mill or something off of that or whatever. I know that's a lot of money, but are you willing to do that, to have your life put up on on mainstream media, to be attacked as some type of evil traitor to your country and digging up dirt? Really, they're trying to destroy your life. They're trying to do everything. They don't want to unlive you because that's messy. But they'll do that if they have to, in my opinion. But it's even more powerful to discourage it. You see people get attacked and taken away in shackles and having to use all their resources on litigation. Look at what's going on with Alex Jones. I know that's separate, well, somewhat separate from the administrative state. He's in the judicial branch right now. But the point of getting at him is just to destroy him, have him use all his money, sell his house, and just go down to nothing and just break him, and to have him be like, damn, I'm out, man. I can't. What is this? What am I doing? So who's going to fill these positions? Who is he going to hire? We've seen biased anti-Trump juries and all these things. The administrative employees are all lifers. To get an internship, I was listening to Charlie Kirk, and he was talking with somebody, I forget his name. Get internships in D.C., it's unpaid. So what America First candidate can get an internship in D.C., unpaid? That means mommy and daddy have the money, is what unpaid. It's a fancy way. That's what unpaid in D.C. means. Very expensive to live there. That means mommy and daddy have money to pay my room and board and party time and all that. So someone who went through the university system is willing to get attacked, has the money to do internships for free in DC. Like, what's the pool? Who are you choosing? What doctors are you going to choose to replace Fauci? So you have to answer that. Maybe Desantis can do it. He did that in Florida. And then who vets the people? Who's choosing the people? It's your staffers. It's the administrative state. That's why I think the mandates are so important. You see, they're wearing masks and stuff, and it looks kind of silly. These masks. It's not something to be silly. It's a very easy, cheap purity test. I'm testing your allegiance. It's that simple. I'm not making any medical claims of pro or con for you, YouTube. I'm saying that it can have other purposes outside of medical. Not even talking about anything medical here. You can use these things as a sign of who's with me or who's not. If you're a staffer that's not willing to put that on, obviously you need to be purged. You're not on board with what the cabal wants. Easy. If you're in the military and you don't take it, great, let's get rid of you. I know you're not on board with me, or you have the propensity to go against me potentially. That's why they want you to needle up, mask up, do what we tell you to do. Okay, now it doesn't mean we can trust you just because you have the mask on, but it's a layer of filter that if you don't, we know we can't trust you. We know that for a fact. Simple, easy, cheap purity test. They're probably doing that with these intros and the pronouns now, where they're like, hey, I'm Osiris and I'm dark-skinned and I'm so dark-skinned I'm almost purple and my hair is bald. Yesterday my hair was just gray. I look like the Black Santa Claus, and I'm wearing purple shorts, but my legs are under the table, and even though you can't see them, I'm wearing purple shorts. They're basketball shorts, and I'm wearing a white sweater with a American flag in the shape of a heart, and my pronouns are bite me. If you don't do what they do, then So imagine Kamala Harris goes around the table and she's like, oh, I'm a light-skinned politician that kind of used knee pads and Willie Brown to project myself and to advance my future career. And I'm so. I've never been really fully vetted because I've been able to make it through and screen through. And so she does her intro. And imagine if that comes around to you where you have to do your intro. And the intro supposedly for the blind. But well, why don't you say your height and weight? Some of y'all are skinny, some of y'all are big. I'm not saying anything bad against it, but if I'm blind and it's important for you to know that I'm a dark-skinned, non-establishment dude or whatever you want, however you intro yourself, Kamala Harris, I'm a light-skinned Jamaican Indian mix, then why don't you say I'm 5'8" and 350 pounds? If you really cared about blind people, what they visualize when they hear you. If it really mattered, you would say, oh, I'm 5'8", I'm 400 pounds, and I've got pimples all over my face. You don't care about blind people. Don't sell me on some stupid stuff. It's allegiance. So if it comes across to the table to you, and you don't say, hey, my pronouns are he, him, and I don't know what else they do. I mean, it's so asinine. This one woman, if you haven't seen the clip, they're going around the table talking about their pronouns or whatever the hell they talk about. She's like, and I have a mask with a see-through. I'm like, what? She has a mask with like a see-through over her mouth. Now, that would be for deaf people, I presume. I don't know. Show off your lipstick? I don't know. But what if it comes around to you and you don't do it? You're not in the club. You're done. What if they all did that stuff and it came around to me and I'm like, nah, I'm good. I'd be Chet Hanks. How awkward would that be? I'd be fired the next day from this political stuff. What if it came around to me and I was like, man, y'all sound real stupid right now. You think I'm going to partake in this kind of nonsense? Let's keep the meeting going. Very simple purity test. That's what it is. It's always for something good. We fortified the election to save democracy. It's always something good. They're not going to say this is a bank stick up. They're going to say this is a movement for racial justice. That's why we're sticking up the Walgreens. Recently, protesters were outside a TPUSA event. They had these Yahtzee flags. This was about attacking TPUSA. It was not about attacking Desantis. they had Desantis flags there. Don't get this twisted. This is all ties into the administrative state. Maybe there's residual benefit to bringing Santis into it, but this is about the kids. This is what that was about. Why would they be attacking TPUSA? If you don't know what TPUSA is, just a think tank, and it focuses on high school, college, university kids. That's what it focuses on. That's what it's really about at its core, the youth. And Charlie Kirk goes around to universities, and what he's trying to do is tell these students, you don't have to go to the cabal. I'm providing an alternative. Be courageous because you're going to get attacked. And challenging the cabal. So waking people up. If he goes to a university and wakes up 20 students, it was worth the time. That's what his goal is. That's all his goal is about the students and the youth. It's not about Trump and all that. It's about building that bench strength youth of people who are, you could say America first, but more independent thinkers. Because if I was young and had courage, I would roll with Charlie Kirk, even though I'm not, I don't align with him perfectly. So it's an organization made up of high school, college students who could fill these jobs and deep state jobs with qualified America first or independent employees. So that's a danger. They're playing the long game. Some of these students are 16. So in 10 years, they're going to be the staffers. They have to label these students as Yahtzees inaccurately because they want them expelled from school. They want a 16-year-old high schooler who puts on their resume for, college application, what type of organizations have you been with? You've been with TPUSA? Oh, they're that Yahtzee group. You don't get in. They want to stop it. They want to ostracize them, these young adults, some of them kids. They want them turned down in job checks, in vetting. Oh, even if you try to hide it and you don't even put TPUSA on there, maybe they vet. Look on the internet. Oh, I saw you were at the TPUSA and you had Charlie. You were there when Charlie Kirk spoke, and then there were some Yahtzees outside. That's a Yahtzee event. That's a hate group. That's hate speech. You don't get the job. You don't get into college. And not only that, you need to get the hell out of DC or wherever you're at. They're trying to stop the momentum from organizations like TPUSA because the longer that they get momentum, the harder it will be to stop them.
Do you accept Whoopi's apology?
I mean, it's like a half apology, but I'm not the person to ask because she didn't smear me. She smeared our students. So they're the ones that you got to ask. I mean, look, I'm not going to stop fighting for my students. And look, I mean, I understand the heart to, let's say the intent to offer an apology. All right, after the third or fourth time, after they're forced under lawyer pressure to do that. But look, it's really about our students. And that's why we acted so forcefully with this. You should not be able to go after minors and smear them as Nazis and get away with it. And it was only until we sent a cease and desist letter did we actually get an apology. Think about that. I think it's more about, please forgive me because I don't want to be Nicholas Sandman than if I'm really sorry. So look, I'm not one to I'm not going to judge people's motives. I doubt them with Whoopi Goldberg, but you're going to have to ask our students because she targeted them at the core.
Charlie Kirk is playing chess and he sees what they're doing. That's why he's only talking about the youth. He's like, they're trying to smear these youth, the young people, to scare other young people from not joining them. Imagine you're 16 and you're like, I don't mind that TPUSA thing. How do I get in? You hear on The View, you hear wherever, Whoopi Goldberg says, oh, they had those Yahtzees. They let them in. Now, Whoopi Goldberg doesn't know what the hell's going on, but she does know that there's a push and it's okay to associate any type of person like this with a Yahtzee. So they go ahead and do that. Usually people don't push back. That's why Charlie Kirk was like, I can't have this. I can't have this because people who are 16 aren't going to join me if I don't stand up and show I'm going to back you and let people know that I know you're not a Yahtzee. This is an informational, we are in the middle of an informational civil war. Like, that should not be questioned anymore. That's how thick this is. That's how deep this is. I'm going to kind of end with the article that came out just to show the Democrats don't like this Schedule F idea. And I don't think the Republicans do either. It's not a one or, it's not one thing or the other. So Democrats are against this Trump Schedule F. And there's an article that just came out today. Headline of the article. I'm going to end with this and then maybe look at some comments. I'll be out. Senate Dems have joined the push to block Schedule F. Of course they have. It's very important. In recent weeks, former White House aides from the Trump administration unveiled plans to immediately reinstitute Schedule F the next time a Republican is president. They already knew that was going to happen because he already signed it in October. It was literally at the end of his term, so he couldn't do anything. I mean, to rehire and fire, this is going to, even when you can do it, it will take a long time. They said it was an ill-fated plan to find and reclassify positions of these career federal workers. Trump, who is mulling another campaign for president, seemingly endorsed the plan in a speech last week. I haven't read that yet, so I'm going to have to look at and see what he said. Those involved with the effort said they already identified 50,000 employees, so they're putting a political target on them who could be fired. It's literally a political threat. That's what Trump's doing. Prepping you. If I'm able to become president or DeSantis is, this is coming. So I want your mindset to already be reset to you might actually have to listen to what I am, what America First really is. They hope terminating a fraction of that number would create a chilling effect. Yes, that's the whole point. That's politics. If people vote for the president, they would support that, I think. So Democrats in the House passed this bill preventing a patronage system act as a part of the National Defense Authorization Act. This is what Jonathan Swan was talking about in the clip I played earlier. And on Tuesday, a group of Democratic senators led by Tim Kaine, this is perfect textbook establishment type of dude. He is the perfect guy. Remember, was the VP candidate for Clinton, Hillary. So he's lockstep in line. He has introduced legislation as well. It's like all of the worst are sponsoring this, all these names here. So here's what Kaine said. Our civil service plays an invaluable role in everything from our national security. Of course, they're going to bring up that national security. So that's why I agree that Tim Pool, I think, and others brought up that something could have happened. I don't know if this is what happened, but it is possible that Elon Musk was in the process of buying Twitter, and the last resort that they were going to use was the government stepped in and behind the scenes told Elon, the algorithm that you want to mess with, you can't touch it. It's national security. And that's private. If you release that, you're done. SpaceX done. You can't, this is classified information. So then Elon's like, I'm overpaying the stock price on Twitter and I can't do anything differently on it. The algorithm is Twitter. So I can't do anything with the algorithm. It's just, I'm not a fact. I'm just speculating. If that were the case, you have to agree with Trump that you've got to go in and clean house in our national security agencies. Then they would not label Twitter's algorithm as national security. Then you could change it, do legislation, all that stuff. So they pulled the national security card to the administration of Social Security benefits. So they're acting like if you fire people, you can't administrate Social Security. And it's in the Americans' best interest that those positions be filled with the most qualified applicants. Who do you think is qualified? Do you think Tim Kaine thinks any young person who's graduated from college was from TPUSA? That's the one group I know. Do you think he thinks anyone from TPUSA is qualified for an internship as a staffer in DC? No. That's what he means by qualified applicants. And my takeaway here is going to be libertarian in a second. This legislation would put common sense safeguards in place to protect the merit-based hiring system for a federal workforce. And I urge all of my colleagues to join us in supporting it. Workplace protections for federal workers exist for a reason, so any one administration cannot fire career employees and install their own political appointees. Why not? Career federal workers are committed to the public service and serving the greater good. They're not voted. So greater good of who? I agree. They are serving the greater good of somebody that ain't you and me. And they fulfill a range of critical roles from protecting national security. There it is again, this time from Dianne Feinstein. She's like 90 years old. She doesn't know what's happening. Literally. To bolstering our nation's pandemic response to safeguarding our communities. Not that everybody who's 90 years old doesn't know what's happening. I know people who are 90 years old who know what's going on. I'm talking about her. These career, and even though they know what's going on, they should not be public servants. These career federal employees, these career federal employees must be protected from politics. How are they protected from politics? You just agree with them politically. They're not protected from politics. They're in DC. You're protecting them from populism, from populists, so they can do their jobs, and that's what our bill would accomplish. So my takeaways, I'm going to end with this. My takeaway for libertarians from all of this is and I think the Mises Caucus agrees with this, you've got to build that young base. That's more important than anything. And to me, that's why talking about Dave Smith and supporting Dave Smith is huge. I don't reach young people. I'm 18 or older, even older than that, probably looking at demographics, 25 to 44 men pretty much. Well, it's 25 is pretty young. So if you're 25, you qualify. But you need the Libertarian Party to reach these young people. And I don't want to dwell on it because I don't want to be overly negative. But I did a video with poor audio where I was very upset about the way the Libertarian account from New Hampshire handled the situation. And I think they've made some changes. I think they're trying to there was nothing harmful. They weren't trying to, anyone can make a mistake. But the big picture is, even beyond them, is MAGA and the populist right align with libertarians closer than other groups. And you've got to think about, what is your strategy here? What is you have to show how you differ from MAGA. Absolutely. But there is overlap. I always talk about Marjorie Taylor Greene has a bill to abolish the ATF. That's a libertarian position. Marjorie Taylor Greene is for national divorce. That's a libertarian decentralization position. They're for the Convention of States. That's a libertarian decentralization position. That's from MAGA. They're anti-interventionist. That's a libertarian position. They're for strong military defense. That's a libertarian position. Libertarians are for strong anti-war, but if you're in the wild, wild west, if you're anarcho-capitalist, you're against police, but your private security are going to be like ninjas if you can afford it. So my point is, there's overlap. So if there's overlap, why would you attack Trump? You need to have a more nuanced approach with it. You can attack Biden all day. There's no overlap there. You can even attack Jimmy Dore, and I don't want you to. I want to work together. But I'm just saying, if you look at the Bannon right and the Jimmy Dore left, you have more overlap with Bannon. And I know they talk bad about libertarians sometimes. They say misstuff. You can pot shot back. But at the end of the day, if you're trying to get more people, young people, into libertarianism, the speech I played on the other day from Clifton Duncan is the way to do it. Talking about these issues in a way that doesn't ostracize Trump supporters is the way. Libertarianism is scary because you rely on your own knowledge. You don't rely on the government to tell you what to do. The populist left is really, they are very happy with the government telling them what to do. They're happy with large government spending. MAGA, they are not fully decentralized type people, but they are for limited government power and spending. That's way closer overlapping with libertarians. Look at this channel. This channel's probably, right, populist right to libertarian. We hang out together. So if you're going to go after Trump, man, you got to really be very thoughtful on how you do it. I'm not saying don't do it. I'm not saying don't challenge Trump. I challenge Trump all the time. I'm challenge DeSantis. I need to see these guys tested and challenged. I need tough questions asked and answered. That's why I think Tim Pool needs to have someone, because Luke's not there. Luke's got to do is, these are monsters. Tim Pool and Luke Radowski, to have them together is a treat. So Luke's not on the show all the time. So when you have Marjorie Taylor Greene there and you don't have Luke, you got to have somebody who challenges her respectfully a little bit more. Asks tougher questions. So I'm all for challenging them, but you've got to be thoughtful with how you do it. You can't ostracize the populist right. You can just cozy them on over. For people who voted for Biden, you need to throw cold water in their face. Fine. Good with that. Take the red pill. But if you're talking about Trump, you're talking about a group that is open to a lot of your ideas. So if you go ahead and tell them that Trump is some a psyop, you're really telling the people who follow Trump that they're idiots. So why would they even listen to you? Because that doesn't even make sense. So that's my takeaway on it. Great Studios, what is good? So I'm going to be out in a little bit here. I just wanted to talk about that. Ray Studios was here when I talked about Michael Tracy. The audio was so bad, Ray. I'm going to do it again. I think the audio is better. I did mic checks before the show. Who knows what happened, but no. The audio could be terrible now. I haven't heard any feedback on it, so hopefully it's good. But I talked about Michael Tracy before, and I can't clip it because the audio was so bad. So I'm going to go back to that again, to Michael Tracy. I'm going to end with that. Michael Tracy, I don't know if he's populist right, populist left. I don't know what he is, but I've had quite a few interactions with him recently. And I'm going to go through, there's another interaction since last time. So I'm going to go through it again, what happened with Michael Tracy. And there's no beef against Michael Tracy. I'm about ideas. I'm not about beefing with people. It's stupid. I don't have time for that. No time to beef with people. For what? I'm beefing with ideas from people. I follow Michael Tracy because he does good work. Sometimes. This is terrible work. This is shoddy work, what he's doing here. Very harmful work. And I'm very close to saying it's consciously harmful. I probably will make that statement pretty soon here, even on this live. So Michael Tracy said, the ideal scenario for Republicans seems to be that Pelosi ends up not going to Taiwan, after which they can blame Biden for weakness, appeasement, and bolster their case that they're the ones who will most aggressively confront China. When you say Republicans, I replied to that, and I did, now that I read it again, I did do a little dig at Tracy. I didn't really mean it like that, but it came across. I don't blame him. But let me see what else did he... Okay, let me read the rest of it. Michael Tracy, who's a journalist, a writer, says there's an enormous amount of evidence that a top priority for Republicans once they take control of Congress and or the presidency will be to confront China military and otherwise. Even among ostensibly rival GOP factions, there is almost total unanimity in this issue. So he's saying everybody agrees. So you can tell, like, I'm very much, I admire the populist right. I don't know if you would consider me, I'm more middle MAGA, but, you know, it's funny. Salty Army has been very friendly to the channel. Shout out to Salty Army channel, you know, the Salty Army out there, because I'm not nearly as, I don't even know how to describe it. I'm more milquetoast than salty. And they tend to really not like when you're milquetoast, but they've been really friendly to the channel. Really appreciate that. So I don't even call myself MAGA because I don't want to even label myself as anything. But you can see my concern. Well, I call myself MAGA in a general sense, but not like populist right and populist middle MAGA. There's an enormous amount of evidence of Republicans wanting war with China. And you could see me reading this, like, when you say Republicans, let's be clear, all Republicans aren't the same, Tracy. So I'm cringing a little bit. I'm like, okay, I agree with you, the establishment Republicans, but you don't mean like the real Republicans, do you? You know what I'm saying? That's how I'm reading this. I'm like, the MAGA Republicans have kind of infiltrated things. So you have to, when you talk Republicans, you have to separate them. You have to. You can't just say it without separating them. So Van Jones was on CNN. He had a great clip. I'm going to probably find that here. And just to talk about, here's what Michael Tracy is missing. And Van Jones is a corporate guy. So there's no excuse. Michael Tracy, to me, comes across as trying to be a populist left. So the populist left really should know what the populist right is about, because we're not enemies. So here's Van Jones on CNN, just a great clip.
Has a strategy now. Well, frankly,
let me start this over.
The Republican Party.
And Van Jones has so much potential. He's a real smart guy. He's just a corporate guy. He's going to do whatever the corporate wants.
The Republican Party has a strategy now. Well, frankly, there are four parties in the country. There's the progressives, there's the establishment Democrats, there's the Republican conservatives, and MAGA.
So bring that back again. I'm tying this into Michael Tracy talking about Republicans in general want warmongering with China. Very similar to the Caitlin Johnstone. He and Caitlin Johnstone, they're basically the same people. Very similar, different styles, but they got the exact same takes. So they're both saying Republicans want war with China. And Michael Tracy and Caitlin Johnstone take it a step further. They say MAGA wants war with China. That's what gets me triggered. There's different factions.
Strategy now. Well, frankly, there are four parties in the country. There's the progressives, there's this.
Progressives. There are no progressives in D.C. I know that might strike people, like they might think AOC, Elon. They're just cosplaying. In Eric July shared a video where somebody, the couple women were dressed up as Yaira. And you could tell probably if he could cry, he probably would have had tears. Like, he hasn't even released a book yet. He goes to a Comic-Con convention. He really goes to these things, and someone is dressed up as his character there, man. That's special stuff. And you can give him dap and hug, man. That's and not even on some politics stuff, man. That's just on some regular, we love good story stuff, man. Beautiful stuff. But what's happening is AOC is dressed up as a populist left. She is not Jimmy Dore. She is not Nico House. She's not Fiorella Isabel. She's not Pasta. She's not Kim Iverson. She's dressed up as them. She's fake. So he says there's the progressive left, but there's no real progressive left. So that's not a real party.
In the country, there's the progressives, there's the establishment Democrats.
The establishment Democrats are the only party, other party. The Republicans, he's going to say the conservative Republicans, they are in the establishment Democrats. They're the same party. So the fake progressives, the establishment Republicans, the conservative Republicans are establishment Democrats. Those first three groups he mentioned are one political party. Then he mentioned what I consider a true opposition party.
There's the Republican conservatives and MAGA. MAGA has a strategy.
MAGA is so we have establishment Democrat. Everybody's underneath that umbrella with slightly different takes. Then you have MAGA.
It's not just Trump, it's Trumpism. And what is Trumpism? Trumpism is attempting to become the party of the multiracial working class. That shocks liberals. They can't imagine that. But what they are doing.
Wait, I thought they were supposed to be the racists. What did you say?
And what is Trumpism? Trumpism is attempting to become the party of the multiracial working class.
Oh, so you mean they're not Yahtzees? What did you say, my nigga?
Trump. It's Trumpism. And what is Trumpism? Trumpism is attempting to become the party of the multiracial working class.
Oh, so you went mask off and told the truth for a second. I thought they were supposed to be Triple K. I thought they were supposed to be these evil white nationalists. What are they, Van?
MAGA has a strategy. It's not just Trump, it's Trumpism. And what is Trumpism? Trumpism is attempting to become the party of the multiracial working class. That shocks liberals. They can't imagine that.
So that's Hispanics, Latinos, Venezuelans, Cubans, Black, dark skin, light skin, Asian, Italian, Jews. Like, oh, you mean like almost like a populist party? Is that what you mean? So they're not Yahtzees, I guess. I guess it's not a party of Yahtzees.
Trumpism is attempting to become the party of the multiracial working class. That shocks liberals. They can't.
It not only shocks liberals, it shocks Michael Tracy. You know, Michael, it's only your job to know the difference between MAGA and non-MAGA. Why don't you know that? He knows it. Why don't you know it? He's a corporate shill and he knows it and is acknowledging it. I'm only left to believe Michael Tracy, and I've lost respect for him, so I call him Tracy, and that is out of disrespect. I'm calling him Tracy so I don't call him something worse than Tracy. It's a conscious conflating of the populist right and corporate Republicans, because I don't know the reason why you don't want to give the populist right credit. I don't know the exact reason why. He's going to have to explain that. But you cannot convince me that that Van Jones knows the truth and Michael Tracy doesn't. Stop it.
Republican conservatives and MAGA. MAGA has a strategy. It's not just Trump, it's Trumpism. And what is Trumpism? Trumpism is attempting to become the party of the multiracial working class. That shocks liberals. They can't imagine that. But what they are doing is they are moving right on culture. That's true. CRT is bad, trans is bad, but they call it parents' rights. So they're marketing their rightward move on culture really well. But they're all
the evil parent rights. Like, what's more evil than saying parents have rights? You know, the kids are only their responsibility.
Also moving left on economics. MAGA sounds like Bernie Sanders when they're talking about American terror.
So the populist left, I think, I'm just going to speculate here. I think they're jealous. Not all of them. I'm just talking about Caitlin Johnstone type and Michael Tracy types. That MAGA has become the true. They're the ones talking about Julian Assange, not AOC. Now, they're not talking about student loans and all that. That's some wild stuff, populist left. But they're talking about Julian Assange. They're the one talking about free speech. They're the ones trying to abolish the ATF. They're the ones that are non-interventionists while the fake progressives are voting for money to Ukraine. They're the ones with, the policies that put people first, not the fake progressives. And I think it just hurts them to have to side with that group that's supposed to be these racists. What did you say, Van Jones? You said economically they remind you of Bernie Sanders? They're the ones who are anti-illegal immigration, which is a populist left stance. Should be. Because that hurts your left unions and workers. No, it's the populist right that is, not AOC. So they know that there's this, like, oh my gosh, like I actually have to side with Marjorie Taylor Greene more than AOC. See, that's why I like to be independent. I don't care. I will side with her when our interests align. When she missteps, I'll say it. What's so hard about that? Why are you jealous of the populist right? Join a board. Where you disagree, you can disagree. I disagree with how they handle the trans issue, and I talk about that all the time. I say it's more of a libertarian approach. I don't disagree from a populist left standpoint, more of a libertarian. If a parent and a child and a doctor agree on anything, then I'm out of it. I have nothing to do with it. None of my business, and it's none of the government's business. That's not the populist right is very adamant against it. My point is, you can disagree with them where you disagree. I don't agree with Marjorie Taylor Greene on everything.
Rights. So they're marketing their rightward move on culture really well, but they're also moving left on economics. MAGA sounds like Bernie Sanders when they're talking about American terrorists, when they're talking about American jobs, when they're going after big tech companies. And so by moving left on culture, left on economics and right on culture, that's appealing to working class voters, including black and brown voters. Democrats don't see this coming. We overreact to the cultural moves, underreact to the economic appeal, and you're seeing it pay off for MAGA.
Yeah, you do. So let's go back to Michael Tracy. So Michael Tracy is saying the Republicans are for war in China. Does anyone really doubt that a forthcoming GOP presidential primary will prominently feature candidates competing amongst themselves for who would be the toughest on China, which they'll contrast with the alleged appeasement and weakness of Biden Dems? I agree. Of course they're going to be talking about who's tough on China in the right way. They're not going to be talking about starting war with China, though, Tracy. So I replied to his first tweet here, and I was like, I didn't mean to pop anything off. My second sentence, I can see why, but I said, I just want to make it clear. I meant to say that the populist right is non-interventionist. And then this is what probably triggered him. I was like, but it's true. I don't regret it at all. Tracy is not doing a good job covering that. So in the presidential primary, you could have Tucker, you could have Desantis, you could have Trump, just hypothetically. They will be talking about China, but they won't be talking about war. They're going to be talking about trade, information, CRT, and whatever things that might be allegedly coming from China. China's impact on the universities, China buying land in the U.S. They're not trying to start a war with weapons against China. No populist right figure that I respect or seen is saying that. So I'm like, Tracy's not doing a good job on that. So then he comes on top of me with a quote tweet and says, and I didn't see this right away. I was actually going through the Libertarian Party of New Hampshire retweeted Michael Tracy. And I was like, what? This dude came over the top of me on that. And he said, I have no idea who the populist right is. Stop. That's where you should have just stopped and asked questions. Why didn't he come over the top of me and just say, I have no idea who the populist right is. Who are you talking about? What do you mean? Can you help me here? Why couldn't he have done that? No, but because it's Twitter or whatever, or maybe he was in his feelings lightweight, said, oh, I have no idea what it is, but I do know what it is. It's a fictional non-interventionist prototype that people on Twitter have invented in their heads. So he said, I don't know what it is, but actually, I do know what it is. No, you don't know what it is. You should have just stopped there. So he said, this is just something that I invented in my head, the populist right. Steve Bannon is one of the most hardcore proponents of fomenting outright regime change in China. Is he the populist right? So he tried to use that. Caitlin Johnstone and others have been talking about this clip where Steve Bannon says he wants regime change. So let me clear that up for you, Tracy. I want regime change in America. That doesn't mean I want a war for it to happen. Do you get it? If you didn't understand the populist right, just ask. I would have been glad to help explain it to you. But it's been the most powerful political movement in our country for 7 years. You might want to study it on your own if you're a journalist. I'm just a guy in my basement, not getting paid, channel demonetized, not getting anything for it. Am I supposed to believe that this is by accident, Tracy? that you don't know what it is and are misconstruing what it is? Yes, Steve Biden said he wanted regime change in China. He has never called for war or any type of CIA type of regime change like in Ukraine. That's not the take, Michael. Oh, and I made up the populist right in my head, right? Well, on the same platform that you're saying this, you have Marjorie Taylor Greene. She said, why is it so important that Speaker Pelosi go to Taiwan? Why is she putting our military in the middle and responsible for defending her life? Instead of staying in America and solving problems afflicting our people, she's provoking war with the unpredictable Communist Party. Pelosi is so self-absorbed that she is willing to risk nuclear war and sacrifice our great military lives just so she can go to Taiwan to deliver U.S. taxpayer-funded corporate welfare to foreign companies. I'm sure Paul, her husband, is so excited about his portfolio gains. While we support Taiwan's democracy and staunchly oppose China's ridiculous aggression, no one respects a woman who won't stay home and take care of her own house. She refused to defend the Capitol on J6, refused to defend our borders, refuses to protect children. Americans have had enough with a woman obsessed with her own power she's held for decades while our entire country crumbles. I'm sick of selfish, godless politicians. We are not the world police or bank account to siphon money for every globalist cause. We should focus on America first, American citizens first, and if anyone dares attack the U.S., then we teach them the most brutal lesson they could ever possibly learn and not hold back. But enough of this fake courage defending democracy. Let's clean up and defend our house. That's an anti-interventionist take. Libertarians should agree completely with that. I don't know what libertarian would disagree with that take. Strong military, if something pops off, you don't want it to pop off, but we will handle it. That's the America First take on Pelosi going to Taiwan. If you didn't know, Michael Tracy, on the same platform you're talking about, you don't know what America First is. Respect the military, display strength, put Americans first, anti-interventionist, not complicated. So I want to go through this in detail to back up my point of saying I think that Michael Tracy is willingly ignorant, consciously ignorant. No other explanation. Had more back and forth. Michael Tracy came out with another, he came out with another article. And this article was, again, stemming off of the whole China type of thing. And with him, I'm gonna post the article he had. I'm gonna show it here on the screen from his Substack. I had already subscribed to his Substack because he did, like Caitlin Johnstone, they do good work, but their jealousy, something is wrong when they talk about the populist right. So he talked about America First hawks admit U.S. weapons in Ukraine are plunging down a black hole. So what he's looking at is there's this America First event that went on, and some of the people who spoke at this America First event were pro-war in Ukraine, they're warmongers. Just because somebody says they're progressive left, populist left, like AOC, doesn't mean they really are. They're fakes. There are not many real America First candidates and people in D.C. There aren't many politicians, much less staffers and all that. That's not in America. But what Tracy needs to understand is that's not an America First position. So if you're talking about being a warmonger or a war hawk, you're not America First, period. And Tracy, in his article, talked about, I'm going to show the tweet here. I snipped it. And in his article, he said that he was asking, is Lindsey Graham America First? I'm like, this is embarrassing. Here's the quote from Michael Tracy. He says, given that Lindsey Graham apparently sees Trump as the vehicle for his preferred policy vision, does this make Graham an America First guy? Who knows? But here's the exchange I had with him. So Michael Tracy is purposely trying to tie Lindsey Graham just because he showed support for Trump, as Lindsey Graham is America First. Lindsey Graham is my America First example of a warmonger. Everybody in this channel pretty much knows probably that Lindsey Graham is not America First. It's the most bizarre and ignorant type of take. So I'm like, I'm not a journalist, but I'm guessing it would be a good idea to research what America First is before asking a ridiculous question like, is Lindsey Graham America First? It's embarrassing. It's shoddy work. It's bad work. So then he comes back sounding like Caitlin Johnstone, says, thank you for promptly continuing the useless definitional debate that was a central theme of the article. That wasn't the central theme of the article. You saw the title of it, and the title is just described it well. America First Hawks. The point of the article wasn't to distinguish America First from non-America First or anything like that. It was to label people as America First who are warmongers. That was the purpose of the article. So he's trying to say I'm getting into a battle of semantics. No, if you call Lindsey Graham America First and I say he's the opposite, then that's not a battle of semantics. That's a battle of you don't know what the hell you're talking about. A battle of semantics is tomato, tomato. Okay, whatever, call it tomato and we'll have a conversation. Even recession. It might be worth sometimes to have a battle of semantics, but whether you say it's 2 consecutive quarters of negative GDP growth or not, the economy is what it is. That is a semantics argument. This is not a semantics argument. If you say AOC is America First, and I say she's the opposite of America First, and you say that's a semantic argument, that's not a semantic argument. You're just an asshat. They're not the same things. So I asked Tracy, he has not answered this question. I'll double check again. What research have you done to better understand the populist right? No answer. He's exchanged with me before. Maybe he hasn't seen it. I quote tweeted it here again. What research have you done? Radio silence. So I think it's important for people to, when you see this type of stuff, to make it clear. Because you've got young people who probably read stuff from Tracy, don't know what's happening. They're like, oh, wow, America First are warmongers. You don't have to be America First if you don't want to be. I don't label myself as America First. I'm America First friendly. I'm all over the middle of Libertarian and America First, and I'm all over the place. So you can be whatever you want, but just be accurate with your depiction of who they are. That's what I demand. And I hope that's not too much to ask. Look at the comments here. Thanks for hanging out. The last says it's about spending our money here at home before spending it abroad. I can't believe he thought Graham was aligned with America First. I think he's willfully ignorant. He wants his take to be the only thing that he can find from an America First person that sounds like warmongering is Steve Bannon condoning regime change in China. It might be worth to bring up that take to talk about what we're talking about there. I have not brought that up yet. The actual article. I got to find it. I don't have it ready. But that's the only thing he has. So what do you want? He's trying to prove his point. And I don't like them talking about warmongering. And Joni Ernst was the one at the America First event. And there were others talking about warmongering in Ukraine. Not feeling it. Not at all. I haven't even done a video on this, but Caitlin Johnstone and I had another interaction, and I will continue to praise her when she's right and have interactions when she's wrong about the top populist right. But let me show the clip here. Let me show the clip. I got to find it. Sorry. Let's see here. Okay, so I think this is it. So she basically wrote the same article as Tracy, very slight differences. Warmongering, look, it's the exact same time. It's the same thing. Same take from I don't want to call her fake populist left, but disingenuous populist left. And she went to this. This has been running around for a while, this Bannon quote. Steve Bannon's support for regime change. This is what she and Michael Tracy are using to say that the populist right are warmongers. So let's go to that. I've seen these interviews. He said it multiple times in interviews and all over the place. But let me try to find that. Okay, so here it is. This is from Asia Times. This is 2020, June of 2020. Let me search on regime. Okay. So this is, oh, that's not it here. Hold on. Let's see. Okay, here it is. Asia Times is talking to Steve Bannon. And Steve Bannon's, and they're talking here, and they say, the United States issued a national security, this is 2020 again, this is from 2020. United States issued a national security strategy last month in which it said that the United States still holds to the one China policy and specifically said that the United States does not seek regime change in China. So are you suggesting that we should change that policy and our official policy should be regime change? Bannon, in fact, I am an advisor to this new government that's been formed of the new federal state of China, which is a collection of high net worth individuals and sports and cultural figures throughout the world, patriots that advocate for taking down the CCP. It's obvious that the Chinese Communist Party is at war with their people, at war with the United States, as we know from unrestricted warfare. Their view of war is very sophisticated. I've talked about this as well. It deals in information deals and cyber deals and economic and kinetic. There's certainly not a kinetic war. What he means is there's no guns or bombs. As we speak, that could have changed. I don't know because of Pelosi's trip, but more importantly, they are conducting an information hot war and an economic war. It's not the U.S. that has forced their hand or demanded, but I don't think that the Chinese people can be prosperous and free. I don't think Asia can be free until we've had regime change in Beijing, and I'm an absolute advocate of that. So they take that end piece and say, I thought I was sharing my screen, but hopefully you could follow that. They take the end piece. Let me share my screen real quick here. I forgot I was not sharing. I went to a different mode. This end piece where Bannon says, I don't think Asia can be free until we've had regime change in Beijing, and I'm an absolute advocate of that. He has not and never said, I listened to a lot of War Room and Bannon, he has not and has never said he wants war with China. That's not the position. He wants regime change. He thinks America should want. Okay, of course. I want regime change here. I want regime change in America in 2024, in the midterms, in the primaries going on right now. That's regime change. He's not saying the CIA should go over there. He's never said that. He never said we should go over there and force it. We can't. we don't have the ability to do that. Like you can do, like we've done with like Ukraine. You could do that with Ukraine. 2014 with Ukraine, all that stuff that went down. The Maidan revolution, and we back people all over the world. We can do that in Ukraine. You can't do that in China. Not like we did there. You can fund them. You can. There's an opposition party that just in general, you can fund or whatever. But through their process, I don't even know what their process is. That's how you would have regime change. So they're misconstruing it. They're straw manning. Is that a straw man? I don't know. They always play these games with these arguments. It's just misinterpreting the take. They just read through it real quick, saw regime change. They know that when the corporate people say regime change, they mean CIA. That ain't what he's talking about. So thanks to the last. Katie Marias, thank you for stopping by, says, the problem I have is most libertarians I know are open borders. I'm not down with that. I agree completely. Comic Dave Smith is not. I'm always hesitant because I listen to a lot of them and I really don't want to misconstrue somebody else's position. So double check and verify with me. I'm pretty sure Comic Dave Smith is not a open border libertarian. He is not. Now, the libertarian discussion can get nuanced and difficult because you can create a territory under, in a libertarian environment where you're open borders. You can do that. So Katie, here's what, so if we had a libertarian society and say Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez lived in a territory, her territory could be open borders. Anyone from the world could go to her territory. And Katie, you and I could live in a territory next to hers where there's a border. And if you want to become a citizen of our territory, then you would have to go through that process. So you could do it either way. Everybody's going to have territory. I mean, like you think about animals out in the wild. People have territories. That's why beef pops off. In the most rudimentary way, I'm a lion, and this is my lioness, and this is where I hunt for food, and I see another lion, I'm gonna think like, are you trying to get my lioness? Are you trying to get my gazelle? Me and you gonna have beef. Go find another territory. The libertarian is peaceful, but it's not weak. If you don't respect my peacefulness, Eric July is a perfect example of that. Looks like the most peaceful, warm-hearted dude. If you come at him sideways, he's coming back at you sideways. And that's the same thing that would happen in these territories. You would have to mess with defense contractors. Don't think defense contractors would go away in an anarcho-capitalist society. Of course not. Those are the people you would pay to defend you. The control over them, though, would be closer to the people. It's just how I view it. I'm not an expert in libertarianism. I got to do more reading, but that's my approach on it. The last says, libertarians want open borders, but no welfare state. Now, here's the thing. Libertarians are all different, though. Vosh calls himself a socialist libertarian. I label myself as middle MAGA, constitutionalist libertarian. Hey, my name's Osiris. I go by the pronouns bite me, and I'm a constitutional middle MAGA libertarian. I'm a constitutionalist, populist, middle MAGA libertarian. But you can believe in a libertarian society, you can believe whatever you want. You can be a socialist. You just won't have centralized power over everyone. It'll just be your own little centralized power. That's all socialism is to me. I'm a libertarian, but I agree with transhumanism. I agree with universal basic income. I agree with Medicare for all. So that's why I'm very careful with these labels. I would never label myself a conservative because people get so tied up with these labels. They say, oh, you're a conservative, but you agree with this. That happened with Rick Santorum, was on with Tim Pool yesterday. And the problem that people are having is because Rick presents himself as a conservative or whatever, so that's something you have to live up to in every position you hold. And my name is Osiris, and I go by whatever the hell I want to go by. So you don't label me, and sometimes people say, oh, you're stuck in the middle, but you don't seem like you're in the middle. I'm in my middle. The problem might be your mind might not be expanded enough to see that I'm in the middle. If your mind frame is like this big, then you can't even see my whole world. If on the spectrum of left and right, your whole existence is right here, and I'm over here, yeah, I seem like I'm to the right of you, but you don't even see the other views. You don't listen to people who are further right, like Elijah Schaffer or Nick Fuentes. So, of course, I look like a right-wing nut job to you, but your world is so small, anybody does. So I maintain I'm in the middle. You just need to open up your eyes. So you can be a libertarian in all of these things, to me. I think you have to have a welfare state. So let me read your whole quote here just to get it out. I think we can all agree the welfare state is not going away anytime soon. You cannot have open borders in all these programs. Bernie said that. How do you handle when you have a society, a free market society, if you don't want a welfare state, a minimum threshold, like if you're checked out of society, here's the minimum amount of money you have to operate in society. What do you do with homeless people? I say you set a minimum floor, which is the UBI. The big reason people argue against Medicare for all, UBI, and transhumanism is because you can't trust the government. And I agree. But if you can't trust the government or whatever your political structure is in a libertarian society, you would still have politics. Then that's the problem. I can't promote. What policy can I endorse then? If you can't trust the people who implement the policy, that's the problem. You can't talk about any policy. There is no good policy for people who will abuse the policy. So yeah, I agree. All those things can be abused for political purposes, but that's the problem. That's a separate issue. So I am for UBI, Medicare for all, and I forgot what else I was talking about. All the different things I'm for them, and transhumanism. So I'm for Medicare for all, UBI, and transhumanism. If you don't know what transhumanism is just basically humans becoming more aligned with computers, with AI. I mean, basically kind of like the Matrix. I am for all of those things. And but I am for all of those things, assuming that the government implements, or whatever your structure is, implements them in a fair manner. I think transhumanism is just like a gun. Are you against guns, or are you against people who abuse guns? Transhumanism can be abused just like any other weapon can be abused. The internet can be abused. Are you against the internet? So that's my argument on transhumanism. You're literally putting a chip in your brain, like Neuralink, to solve Alzheimer's. And friend of show, Warren Redlick, rest in peace. His mom just passed away recently. Hearts, thoughts, and prayers goes out to you, bro. He's a Tesla guy. I've been on his locals channel before, but I bring him up because he talked about how the benefits of his mom suffered from Alzheimer's. And if you put a chip in your brain, you could potentially solve that. There's good that can come from it. So, and I maintain I can be for all those things and a libertarian. I can be for transhumanism and be a libertarian. I do argue that. And then ultimately, with a UBI floor of income, I think you do have to. Eventually, you get to the point where you do have to arrest people who are struggling or want to be in the streets, in the tent, and all that. They're a security issue. The last says homeless people in America relied on charity until FDR. Yeah, and they still do, though. Yeah, I see what you mean. Because FDR came in with the New Deal, and he helped the administrative state and deep state as well. Progressives uphold FDR as one of their icons, but he was very destructive. He was not as bad as Woodrow Wilson, to me, but he was very destructive. He packed the courts. He did everything they want to do. He was unconstitutional, all in the name of recovering from the Depression. I believe I have to look back through my history. I don't have a good recall like some others to reference this, but it was all recovering from the war. And he did some good things, but yeah, FDR set up this welfare state and all this other stuff. And once you set it up, man, you can't go back from it. So I'm not for what FDR did. Casual Goat says welfare state should be stricter. It does get abused frequently. I think it should be simpler. Just do the UBI. Why are we doing all this red tape with all this Section 8? I get paid back for my rent, and then I get these EBTs. I can use them on some food. I can use them somewhere I can't. Just cut a check for $1,000, or it could be $500 realistically to start out per month. It will never be enough to be rich off of. But just cancel welfare, cancel Section 8, cancel Social Security, cancel all of it. Anytime the government, disability, anytime a government sends a check out to a citizen, stop it now. End the program and replace it with $1,000 per month for every citizen. No illegal immigrants. You have to become a citizen through the process. You get the money. That's it. No red tape. If you want to spend that on a casino, go ahead. and you suffer the ramification. There's no social safety net after that. That's my take. It simplifies it. It's better. It celebrates everyone for being an American. It creates incentive for someone to become a citizen. So if you don't have a welfare state, then how do you handle people who are checked out of society? You give them $1,000 a month. That creates private industries can go and say, hey, there's 5 homeless people on this block with a tent. They're going to get rolled up by the police and taken out of here. But maybe I bought an apartment complex and there's 5 of them. I got a thing with 2 bedrooms. They can do bunk beds or whatever. I take some of their UBI, and so it goes to me as a private business, and I help solve the homeless problem without having to put them in these federal institutions, is my thought. Maybe I'm simplifying it too much. Maybe I'm off, but that's just, I like talking it out, and I'll change where I'm inaccurate. What's up, Robert? This stream right now, I'm just random. I went on a fairly extensive rant on Donald Trump versus the deep state administrative state. But so right now I'm just hanging out. Going to be out in a little bit, but just looking at comments. Thanks for stopping by. Casual Goat says, most things won't be easily afforded on such a low UBI. I made $841 on SSI for a long time, and I could never afford most things to live comfortably without also living in ghettos. Yes. So the UBI is not to it's not to solve for like homelessness. It's just to give you a floor. So here's a good thing about UBI. You give people a UBI. Let's just say it was $1,000. You could do, I did the math. You could do $1,000 a month if you eliminate everything and then maybe get like a little bit else cut back somewhere else, like the money to Ukraine. You could do $1,000 a month. It would be scary for people to give up Social Security and all that, but you would get it until you passed away. My proposal is 18 or older. Anyone 18 or older. So you've got kids in your house. Maybe you got 2 kids and they're in college and they're still living at home or something like that in the basement or whatever. Yeah, the house would get $4,000 a month from the government. The benefit is you get $1,000 a month. It's only $12,000 a year. You can't. I mean, that's not living high on the hog. But then you can go do your Uber on top of it. You could do your McDonald's. You could do your gig economy, your Fiverr. Maybe you know graphics and you contract on Fiverr and you make another couple $100 a month, or you make $1,000 a month. Maybe you do YouTube and you don't get your channel demonetized and you make, I don't know, $100 a month, or some people make way more than that, obviously, but you supplement it with gig economy work. So now I got $1,000 a month and I can do my Uber. I can do my DoorDash, and I've done DoorDash before. It's a cool little thing just for fun, and then use it as any type of stable income. And I was a bell attendant. That was my income. Tips. That industry basically is gone now outside of Vegas, or very high, fluting 5-star hotels. You could do that. You could be a waiter. You could be a waiter and get your $1,000 a month, and then maybe you can, together with both jobs, you're at $40,000, $50,000 a year or something like that. But yeah, you would have to supplement with something else. But if you are completely homeless, then I can, for a lack of a better term, round up the homeless people. I could buy a house, round up the homeless people. It could be difficult because they're checked out, but they can do their drugs or whatever in the house. I wouldn't condone it, and don't condone illegal activity, but they can do whatever they do in the house. I lived in a house with I think it was 5-6 guys before in Ann Arbor, Michigan. You can buy a house that everybody has their own bedroom. They all live in there. I take their UBI, however that works. So each one of them pays me $500 a month or whatever like that. I got a little income. You're going to have to kick people out. It's going to be a lot to it, but that's my thought. The last says, you can try UBI if you want, but I think prices will just go up and you'll end up with more homeless, not less. California has homeless camps charging $200 a month. Do they? Thanks for that info. I did not know. I have to research that. So yeah, you could take their UBI and charge $200 a month. Maybe it's not an apartment or a house. It is a homeless camp with these small, tiny homes that look really cool, and they're hopefully cheap to build. Eventually, right now they're not cheap. But no, in theory, you would not have inflation. So what people talk about, these checks that went out as UBI, that is not UBI, and not my proposal. My proposal adds no money to circulation. They added a lot of money to circulation. That is not my UBI proposal. To me, inflation is strictly adding money to circulation. So if I'm the boss of an island and 20 people live on my island, and I just throw $10,000 in circulation for them to trade and barter. If I'm the boss of the island, like the Federal Reserve, and I create another $10,000 and just throw it on the island for them to barter, that is inflation. Now there's $20,000 in circulation. The price is going to go up. The price going up is not inflation. Me putting more money in the bucket is inflation. So say that same island, there's $10,000 in circulation. My proposal is you take 5,000 of that out of circulation and replace 5,000 of it with UBI. That does not, in theory, does not, I don't see how, but I can't say that because it's never been done to my knowledge, like on this large of a scale. In theory, that should not cause inflation. There's still only $10,000 in circulation on the island. It's just redistributed differently. Before, some of that $10,000 was already getting handed out to people. Ukraine, welfare, Section 8. I'm just saying stop all that and reallocate it. Robert Little says the problem with any safety net like welfare or UBI is that people end up stuck there. We need to help people for sure, but I don't know. It's a big it's a very complex issue. Thank you for the thought. I'm okay. I'm okay if people are stuck there. I just don't want them to be in the street when I'm walking to a convention. That's not safe. I don't want them to be on the beach in San Diego when I'm walking there trying to enjoy it with my family. That's not to be insensitive. I've been homeless before. It's not to be insensitive. Now, I didn't live in the street, but I was living in my car, parked in a hospital parking lot because they're 24/7. Basically, nobody really checks. It wasn't long. It was like a week and a half or something like that. But I'm not trying to be insensitive to homeless people. That's what they tried to get Yang on. No. Yang said famously, we have rights too, not just homeless people. Okay, there's nothing wrong with that statement. If you have a problem with that statement, you can go find some rocks to kick. You're on some other stuff. Let's have a real conversation. If you have a problem with that conversation, then you need to house homeless people yourself, not me. So I'm fine with if we give somebody $12,000 a month and Meta's up, the Meta universe, and that person says, I'm going to rent this crap hole apartment in Podunk, whatever, buy Starlink and get internet. Hopefully it's faster by then, and live in the metaverse, all strung out with the virtual headset on, and live off the $12,000 a month. I'm good with that. Some people are going to be checked out of society. They're not on the street. They're not bothering me. My problem is when they become a threat to security, to safety. That's my thing. And I don't want to just sweep up homeless people without giving a minimum floor for them all. We know for a fact you're worth $1,000 a month. So if you're in a tent on the street, you're there. Well, not that, the $1,000 a month isn't enough to pay rent everywhere, but you can go, I don't know if they'll cover rent, but maybe private industry will step in and house them in these camps where it's $200 a month or whatever. And now you're in a camp or something like that off somewhere else, and that you're checked out of society, but I can go about society without worrying about you. And I feel good because I'm contributing to society to give you $1,000 a month, and me as well, and everybody else, to ensure there's a floor. So I know because a populist left, they get triggered, and I don't blame them when the police go through and clean out a park of homeless people. I don't blame them. I'm with them like that. It's tough to see. It's really tough. It pulls at your heartstring like, man, these people I know a lot of them are there willingly, Some of them are not. They have mental issues, all the different type of things, but it's not a good visual for the police rushing in and rounding them up. And I don't know if they arrest them or what they do, cleaning out the park. But don't you want the park cleared out? So my thing is UBI, we know they're worth so much money. If they're not going to pay that $200 a month to get to where they can go and do whatever they need to do and keep the park clean, then they need to go get rounded up and put into jail. If you're in jail, you do not get a UBI. So I'm sure I'm simplifying things, but I have not heard a retort that has made me rethink that position. Jay Jr. says back to Robert, I agree. Need a method to bridge from the, what's the SSI stand for? Like the income, supplemental income. Is that basically welfare? But to bridge from the welfare, et cetera, to being able to stand on our own is a very slippery step. So I don't even take that position. If you don't want to stand on your own, then you don't have to. Just don't be in my way. That applies to me when I was checked out of society for a little bit. I wasn't, in a tent on the street, on the sidewalk in anybody's way, but you can't live out of your car forever. That's how it starts. So luckily I was able to pick myself back up. But the government, I'm not here to pick you back up. I said the floor, you can do, and then after that, do you. It's not my job. It's not the government's job to pick you up anywhere. Just Social Security in general. But so is that, when I say Social Security, I'm thinking of, when you reach whatever, was it 62, 63 or whatever? But it doesn't matter. We're talking about anything the government pays a check, disability, all that stuff. And you lose the Medicaid. Yeah. Yep. And you take your $1,000 a month, you supplement it with whatever you make, and then you can pay for your own health care. I am for Medicare for all, but I still want a private industry. Because the medical industry run or funded by government would turn into the DMV. Now, the last time I went to the DMV, my wife was clowning me a little bit. It was actually a really good experience. They changed it because of the pandemic where you had to do an appointment. So I wasn't in there just sitting waiting. I had an appointment time, came in. They're like, oh, we've been waiting for you. You got your paper? Yep. You went. I was in and out. It was a smooth process. So I'll give them props for that. But think about your typical bad DMV experience. That would be your healthcare experience. And you would want a private option. You would never want, I would never want anything totally dominated by the government. Can people go somewhere and not pay into any of that and then not collect any of it? It would be, how would you, any libertarians in here to describe, I describe it as territories. In one territory, you could have a UBI. The other one, you don't. Yeah, you would have to pay into it. You would have to be in a territory with people. I was chatting with people about libertarianism, and somebody was talking about there wouldn't be any politics. And I was like, wait, what? Of course there's going to be politics. Like, if I have a job, I can't run a territory. Like, how I can't run the functions of a territory. Everything would be contracted out to private business pretty much. But, like, who's going to, like, if you have a national defense and you still would have taxes. I mean, that's definitely, it's a tax. Who's going to pay? So let's break it down to this, just the police argument. The argument isn't that there wouldn't be police. The argument is there would be private security. So you have a neighborhood or a city or a larger territory like a state. Everybody would have to pay into a fund to fund the police. That's a tax. So it would be stripped down. The government would be, the politics would be closer to you. But unless you were in an area where it was strictly the wild, wild west and you were the only one that paid for like a security force to stay out your house 24/7 or whatever the case may be, you would have to pool your resources. That's all the taxes is. But the difference is you could move at any point. I don't know if you would have a contract. You would have a lot of contracts. The judicial system would have to be very strong, because if I have like say I'm in a city and we contract private police and something happened where they broke the contract, your only recourse would be a judicial system. So yeah, in my idea, you would be able to go wherever the hell you wanted to go, and there would be pros and cons. Maybe the area that doesn't have the UBI is anti, whatever policy you want. So you'll have to weigh, what is my priority? So it wouldn't be simple. Like a libertarian idea, it's not a simple thing. And then you have the danger of corporations in that so say you pool all your money together to hire this private police force, and they get bigger and bigger, and other territories contract with them, and they hire more and hire more. They become an entity to behold. You would want to make sure the free market has competition so no one would be too powerful. That will always be a concern. There is no society that there's no concern about an entities getting too much power. It's impossible. So good discussion. Thanks a lot. I'm going to try and clip this up for the Clips channel. Hopefully the audio came out well, so I can actually use some of the clips this time. Trying to clip it up, and it takes a lot of time to do all that clipping. And you want competition in the marketplace, because I looked at Fiverr. Even though I'm making no money, I was just curious if I had someone go through a video and kind of put some TikTok clips or something like that, edit it for me. How would that go? Number one, you've got to find someone who is open-minded. If these people on Fiverr are anti-Trump, they won't even want to work with you. I've had that experience. I don't think they came out and fully said that, but they just never replied. So that's fine, but that is part of the challenge if you don't have a parallel economy. And we're working to build that up. And I'm not even I don't know. I don't think I say anything outrageous, but I'm obviously not within lockstep with whatever the thing is. So if you want to see shorter clips and not this long ass rambling live, go to the other channel. Hopefully I'll have some clips that I can use there. Other topics on my mind is what's going on with Nancy Pelosi. Somebody give me a heads up. Anything going on there? I'm looking to have people on the channel still. Ray Studios, I got to get in touch with. Jen Perlman, big up. Friend of the show. Very, very big fans of them. Love them a lot. So I'm going to have some guests on here. So I have a lot of stuff going on. Pelosi is my number one thing I got to research on. I do a lot of research on stuff and never do a video, so who knows if I'll do a video on it. Court documents came out and said that Canada's travel ban had no scientific basis. I might talk about that. I might play this actually before I go out. There was this apology. I don't think there was anything in it that is not YouTube friendly. I don't know. I gotta think about it. But this was a heck of a video. Listen to this before I go out. There's always something that lasts on my mind before I go out. You gotta listen to this. This was crazy. If there's anything that's not YouTube friendly, I might have to pull a Tim Pool. So I don't remember the exact. I didn't vet it. I just listened to it and thought it was really amazing. I once said that people are talking about when are you going to apologize for everyone who was asking questions about the pandemic, or all that kind of people who took a stance, and you went against them. When are you going to apologize? And I was like, nah, that's what does that accomplish? I can't lie. I felt a little way when I heard this clip right here.
I will say this. I did not write this. but somebody did. Susan, if it's you, this should be holding down a place in every textbook in the world in the future. And I'm going to read to you what I think is one of the most eloquently stated statements about what we have just been through and what we must all recognize is now the truth. And for those of you who've been watching the High Wire, this one's for you. Let this sink in. An opinion piece from a vaccinated Australian writer is what it's called. If COVID was a battlefield, it would still be warm with the bodies of the unvaccinated. Thankfully, the mandates are letting up and both sides of the war stumble back to the new normal. The unvaccinated are the heroes of the last 2 years, as they allowed us all to have a control group in the great experiment and highlight the shortcomings of the COVID vaccines. The unvaccinated carry many battle scars and injuries, as they are the people we tried to mentally break. Yet no one wants to talk about what we did to them and what they forced the science to unveil. We knew that the waning immunity of the fully vaccinated had the same risk profile as others within society as the minority of the unvaccinated, yet we marked them for special persecution. You see, we said that they had not done the right thing for the greater good by handing their bodies and medical autonomy over to the state. Many of the so-called health experts and political leaders in Australia admitted the goal was to make life almost unlivable for the unvaccinated, which was multiplied many times by the collective mob, with the fight taken into workplaces, friendships, and family gatherings. Today, the hard truth is none of it was justified as we took a quick slide from righteousness to absolute cruelty. We might lay the blame on our leaders and health experts for the push, but each individual within society must be held accountable for stepping into the well-laid-out trap. We did this despite knowing full well that principled opposition is priceless when it comes to what goes inside our bodies, and we let ourselves be tricked into believing that going into another ineffective lockdown would be the fault of the unvaccinated and not the fault of the toxic policy of ineffective vaccines. We took pleasure in scapegoating the unvaccinated because after months of engineered lockdowns by political leaders blinded by power, having someone to blame and turn to burn at the stake felt good. We believed we had logic, love, and truth on our side, so it was easy to wish death upon the unvaccinated. Those of us who ridiculed and mocked the non-compliant did it because we were embarrassed by their courage and principles and didn't think the unvaccinated would make it through unbroken. And we turned the holdouts into punching bags. Lambie, Carr, Chant, Andrews, McGowan, Gunner, and the other cast of hundreds in prominent roles. And we here in America, we could add Fauci and the rest of them, and Biden in prominent roles need to be held to account for vilifying the unvaccinated in public and fueling angry social media mobs. The mobs, the masked Nazis, and the vaccine disciples have been embarrassed by betting against the unvaccinated because mandates only had the power we gave them. It was not compliance that ended domination by big pharma companies, Bill Gates and his many organizations, and the World Economic Forum. It was thanks to the people we tried to embarrass, ridicule, mock, and tear down. We should all try and find some inner gratitude for the unvaccinated as we took the bait by hating them, because their perseverance and courage bought us the time to see we were wrong. So if mandates ever return for COVID or any other disease or virus, hopefully more of us will be awake and see the rising authoritarianism that has no concern for our well-being and is more about power and control. The war of the unvaccinated was lost, on the unvaccinated was lost, and we should all be very thankful for that.
Tell me you didn't feel some kind of way listening to that. That's my 5th time listening to that. I'm out. Peace.